From K2 News, this is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
We are just moments away from ballot boxes locking across the state of Oregon. And for the first time in a major election in Oregon, post office workers are making their final rounds on election night to gather up those mail-in ballots. So much will be decided tonight in the days ahead. That includes a new leader for the state of Oregon and a handful of new representatives on Capitol Hill. And here in Portland, potential big changes at City Hall with one commissioner's seat up for grabs and one city measure that could triple the size of the city council and carve the city into 4 new districts. This is K2's coverage of the 2020 midterm election. Your voice, your vote. Thanks for being with us. I'm Steve Dunn. We're joined tonight by K2 political analyst Jim Moore. Jim, thank you for being here. We appreciate you being here.
Good to be with you. It's going to be a rollicking night.
Always great to work with Jim. Jim's going to be with us all night to break down the returns and the results. So we invite you to join us as well here at KATU.com to watch how this all plays out. Should be an exciting evening. We have a team of reporters scattered across the metro area tonight, including crews covering all 3 candidates in the race for Oregon governor. Genevieve Rayome is standing by in Northeast Portland covering the Tina Kotek campaign. Christina Giardinelli is up in St. Helens tonight with Betsy Johnson supporters. Eric Mock is in Silverton at the election night party for Christine Drazen's team. We'll be hearing more from all of them very soon. Also joined in studio by K2 anchor, investigative reporter Wright Gazaway. And Wright, you're monitoring the Oregon congressional races tonight.
We are, Steve. Specifically, we're keeping tabs on Oregon's 4th, 5th, and 6th congressional districts. Both parties watching those when it comes to control of Congress. It's the first time Oregon's electing 6 representatives to Capitol Hill. We're also keeping you updated on the Portland Charter Reform Measure, which is looking to change the way the city is governed. That's Measure 26-228. We'll break that down coming up. Should be a very interesting night, Steve.
Could be a lot of fun. Fasten your seatbelt over there. Right, Gasaway. Thank you for that. We're also covering the big congressional race in Southwest Washington tonight. Joe English will be following Joe Kent and Maria Gluesenkamp Perez as they vie for Washington's 3rd congressional district seat. And back here in Portland, Megan Allison will provide updates on the race for Portland City Commissioner between incumbent Joanne Hardesty and challenger Renee Gonzalez. And we know election security is major concern. Our Francis Lynn is keeping an eye out for any irregularities that pop up throughout the night. We are just moments away from the first batch of returns. And Jim, while we wait, we do have results for governor. Okay, you ready for this? Let's bring those up right now. Just in now, you're looking at this. Tina Kotek with 50% of the vote. Christine Drazen, 41%. Betsy Johnson, 9%. Let's bring Jim in right now. What do you think as you look at those numbers, Jim? Obviously, very, very early.
Yeah, it's very, very early. We're getting them from a number of counties around the state. So I'm looking in here. So this actually is good early news for Tina Kotek. One of the key things we're looking at, Betsy Johnson, what role does she play? And my way of looking at it is, if she's less than 9%, that gives Tina Kotek a better chance. Over 10%, then Tina Kotek has less of a chance. Christine Drazen has a better chance. We're getting now results from Grant County, Harney County, all over the state here. And so this is a good early look at Tina Kotek. It's good for her early. We got to wait for a lot more things to come in. And remember, a lot of these counties are going to kind of report every 2 hours as we go through.
Well, tell me about that. Usually we get the first numbers are from Multnomah County. And so we assume we see Multnomah County numbers, which would be big for Tina Kotek at first. But you're saying this is all over the state.
This is all over the state. Now, Multnomah County is crucial. Okay. Multnomah County is crucial because Tina Kotek has 71%. Christine Drazen has 21%. Republicans traditionally have to get about 30% in Multnomah so they can win statewide. So this is, once again, early looking good for Kotek.
Let's look at this. Portland City Commissioner, 57% to Joanne Hardesty, 43% for Renee Gonzalez. You look at that, anything stand out to you, Jim?
The only thing is that the margin of victory for Gonzalez looks smaller than we thought it would be. But no, not a surprise. The polls have been showing that Gonzalez is consistently ahead. Joanne Hardesty clearly has picked up a whole bunch of people who were undecided, but not nearly enough.
Let's take a look at the next one. This is another big one here. This is a change to a Portland city government structure. Yes is at 56%, the no's at 44%. Again, this is early stuff, but this is something we talked about earlier. I thought that maybe people might be confused about this one, but at this point, it doesn't appear they are.
Yeah, no, it looks like they want change. They want to get rid of a sitting commissioner, and they want to change the Portland form of government by about the same margin at this point. So once again, remember, people are frustrated with the way Portland is being run and with the problems out there. It's not clear that a new form of government will solve them, but people are saying, look, let's change. It can't be worse than it is right now.
There'll be 4 separate districts involved in this one, as a matter of fact. Oregon Measure 114 requires permit for firearms, limits magazine capacity. I've been real curious how this was going to turn out. We can see right now, again, at this point anyway, 55% of the yeses, no's at 45%, Jim.
Yeah, that is a bit of a surprise. It's actually been polling a little closer. I'll be looking at the counties to see where that's coming in. But this has been favored to pass for a long time. But the no vote, remember, the no vote is the natural vote. It keeps things the way they are.
Right.
People want to do that, but clearly here, enough people at this point are saying we want change, and it's not close.
We've got some big house races, of course. 5th District, Lori Chavez DeReamer, Jamie McLeod Skinner. Let's look at this one. And again, these are early numbers, Jim, but looking at this, if you're in the McLeod Skinner camp, you got to look at this and say, hey, it's going okay for us right now at 78%.
Absolutely. It's looking okay for them at 78%. But once again, following this, we got to look at the counties. Remember, Clackamas County in here has said that it's going to report, and it actually has not reported at this point. This is all from Multnomah County.
Oh, it is Multnomah.
It's all from Multnomah County. Okay. So because of that, it looks good right now for Democrats, but it will shift as we get those other counties to report it.
And we expect that to happen, no question about it. The other one, this is 6th District. Andrea Salinas, the Democrat, Mike Erickson, the Republican. We can see right there, we expected this to be a tight race all along. At this point, anyway, it certainly is. Well, about 10 points separating the two, with Salinas in front at this point. Anything you want to say about this one, Jim?
Yeah, we're missing Marion County, which is the heart of the district. Mm-hmm. This is all from Washington County and Polk County, so 2 important counties, but basically we need to wait for the big bunch of people to come in from Marion County. Remember, in the spring, in the primary, Marion County had problems, and we didn't hear from them for quite some time.
That's a very good point. 4th District now, Val Hoyle, the Democrat, Alex Scarlatos, the Republican. We see this one, boy, they are tied at this point. What do you think will happen to change these numbers here, Jim, as we get deeper into this night?
I think what's going to happen is Lane County is going to report. And when Lane County reports in a big way, they have not, at this point, when they report in a big way, that's going to change it. That is her home territory. Alex Scarlatos is doing well on the coast. Alex Scarlatos is doing well in places like Curry County, where my grandparents are from, in southern Oregon. The coastal counties he's doing well, but Lane County is the key. Eugene, all those votes, and they have not reported yet.
Oh, you have so much knowledge over there. You're just incredible, Jim. Let's go over to state of Washington now. Representative 3rd District, Marie Glusenkamp Perez and Joe Kent. No numbers in on that one, but this is something that we talked about earlier, Jim, as being this is possibly a very tight race between these two, which wasn't expected at the very beginning.
No, it isn't. Remember, Kent is one of those people who's an avid Trumper. He went and he got the endorsement. He did all that stuff. Democrats look at this race, and what should have been a slam dunk for the Republicans to take it, all of a sudden with a Trump person in there, are there going to be enough Republicans who say, I don't want Trump, and they come in and they vote for Marie Glusenkamp Perez? Unknown at this point, but people are watching this really closely.
Okay, so we want to see what the Kotek folks are up to right now. For that, let's go to K2's Genevieve Rayom, who's covering that side of the story. Genevieve, what's happening?
Well, I can tell you that Senator Jeff Merkley just left the stage. He definitely rallied this crowd up. Things are starting to liven up here at the Hyatt Regency. We have the Oregon Party, the Democrats of Oregon starting to talk, explaining what they've been up to, the canvassing, the door knocking, everything that has led them to this point. I can tell you in just the last 30 minutes, this ballroom has started to fill up. There are 3 bars with 3 bars, a spot for people to get popcorn, for them to get chips. There's a photo booth. People are eating, drinking, mingling, and just getting ready for the several hours that are ahead of us. You can see there's someone else on the podium right now speaking at this point. And I'm surprised that they have yet to announce the first round of results, as you just mentioned. Tina Kotek leads with 50% of the votes at this point, but they have not made that announcement inside this ballroom at this point, so I can imagine when that does happen, that there will be a loud roar, lots of cheers, lots of excitement, and we'll finally feel like the night has gotten started. So you can hear the crowds, you can hear the excitement. Things are starting to liven up here. I know we've been talking.
Deep, so we're going to wait for my folks to come up.
Lots of people here. We've been hearing from Eric Mock, who's down in Silverton, and that party certainly started early. I can tell you it was quiet here when it was rowdy down there, and that has certainly changed right now. I'll give you a listen in.
Fantastic. That is beautiful.
Well, we're watching a Democrat party down in Northeast Portland. The folks no doubt waiting for Tina Kotek to come out and chat with the crowd and talk about the fact that Senator Jeff Merkley had just talked to him as well. And so we're going to wait for that to see what happens. But again, some good numbers coming back out. And I'm going to bring you back in, Jim, as we look at that, because as you mentioned, they've got to be excited as these early returns come in for the Kotek camp.
Yeah, absolutely. This was supposed to be a really, really close race, and it may turn out to be a really close race. We don't know at this point. But the key indicator for me right now is Multnomah County, where the Republican, in order to win, has usually got to have 30% or higher, and Christine Drazen was at 21% when we last saw. So that tells me that she simply will not get enough votes in the rest of the state to overcome that big bunch of votes there in Multnomah County. Washington County we'll be looking at closely because it is also heavily Democratic, but it's a big hurdle for Republican candidates over the past 40 years in order to get over that hurdle and get those Multnomah County votes.
You mentioned the Republicans. We're going to see how they're feeling about all this right now. We're going to go to Silverton. Eric Mock is standing by at the Christine Drazen campaign. Eric, bring us up to speed.
Yeah, people are just kind of, enjoying the atmosphere here, milling about. We haven't seen a big reaction from anyone yet to any results. They haven't had them on the screen yet for people to see. So far, it doesn't seem like, people have really either acknowledged the results or seen them as of yet. Like you said, it's still very early, but Tina Kotek does seem to have that early lead here. But according to our results on our website, it still looks like Drazen is still at about 41% with these very early results. So, people here definitely energized, though. They're ready to hear from Drazen. They're ready to, hear how this race is going. And people out here think it could really be Drazen. They really believe she's got a shot tonight. We know, again, polls have shown that it could very well be a tight race. But like you just heard Jim say, it might be hard for her to overcome that big initial dump there that we got from Multnomah County. But so far, people here still having a good time, still kind of waiting for those results. Haven't seen a big reaction from the crowd yet, but when we do, we'll for sure let you guys know.
You certainly do, Eric Mock. Thank you for that. We certainly cannot leave Betsy Johnson out of this discussion either. For that, let's go to Christina Giardinelli in St. Helens now with that campaign. What can you tell us, Christina? Christina's mic obviously was not working, so I want to bring, if we can, we try and get that mic working once again. I want to bring Jim Moore back in here. As you look back at the Betsy Johnson campaign now, clearly this is not going to happen for her tonight. Right. As we look at these numbers, what happened to the Johnson campaign to cause that? I
think a couple of things. First of all, she had a really complex message. A pox on both the parties and take the best from both. That's kind of contradictory. The glasses seem to tie things together, but it was contradictory. The second thing that happened is we have become a much more polarized electorate. We don't split our tickets like we did. And as we got closer and closer to the election, you could see the polls. She was up equal with the other two, 25-30%. She began to sink into the teens, into the single digits. Just looking right now, I only find her above 10% in one county that has reported at this point. She's usually at 6 or 7% in these counties. What that means is people have their teams. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. I can't vote for her because she's not my team. I've got to go for one of the other two.
Okay, Christina Giardinelli, I think we got the microphone working now. She's at the Betsy Johnson camp. What can you tell us, Christina?
Yeah, it wouldn't be election night if we didn't have at least one technical difficulty, so thanks for bearing with us there. Of course, with these early results, there's been a little hustle and bustle. Folks here tell me they know Betsy Johnson personally. I have talked to a few supporters here in the crowd. They say they're not expecting huge results tonight, and they did know that this was going to be a long shot. But again, this is a significant third party that's showing up so far with these preliminary results to be a significant third party campaign. The last time we saw close to these numbers, and again, this is preliminary, but the last time we saw close to these numbers was with Mobley back in the 90s and taking about 13% of the vote there. So around 9% right now is what we're looking pretty similar there. But yeah, people pretty energized here, pretty ready to get the rest of those numbers as we go on. And Johnson just about to give a speech. She talked a little earlier just thanking supporters for coming. And she is expected to comment here just about now soon on these initial results. So we'll hear from her as that comes up.
You let us know if you do.
Live in.
Yeah, Christina, I got you. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you very soon. Thank you for that. And we want to start looking at some of those numbers again as they come in, because that's what people really want to see. Here we go. This is 50% for Tina Kotek, 41%. This has not moved. And Betsy Johnson at 9%. Let's move on to the next one if we can. Bring those in the booth, and we can look at Portland City Commissioner position number 3, Renee Gonzalez, Joanne Hardesty. This one at 57% and 43% for Joanne Hardesty. And of course, the next one, 26-28, which changes city government structure right here, and 56% to 44% no's. And this is something I didn't think people would go for, but at this point anyway, Jim, they appear to be.
Yeah, they really appear to be. And if there's good polling out there, we'll figure out why. But I'm convinced it's because people are just frustrated with Portland. Any change is good change. And so here we go. You see it in both the races, an incumbent being beaten, and let's get rid of the Portland city government and put a new one in place.
Can you explain, Jim, before we move on here, why we may not know the outcome of many races until tomorrow?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. First of all, places like Clackamas County dumped their numbers, or they haven't quite yet, but when they do, they're not going to report until tomorrow, okay? And that's a big county, third most people. The second big thing, though, is the way we vote by mail now. You do it with a postmark. And so a lot of people will have put their ballots in today or yesterday. Those ballots will not even be delivered until tomorrow, the day after. They have a week to come in. So if anything is within about 1 or 2 percentage points, we're not calling it. Right. Because those ballots coming in, they may reflect the pattern that's already there, or they may not, but we have to wait. And so that's what we'll see. And the same thing happens in Washington State as well. Really, really close, we just sit back and we wait for those ballots to come in and get counted.
A new postmark rule you're talking about. Oregon Measure 114 requires permit for firearms, limits magazine capacity. If we can bring that up once more, that's 55% to 45% at this time. Moving on to the U.S. House, 5th District, Lori Chavez to Reamer versus Jamie McLeod Skinner. We see 78% to 22%, which is a little bit better, at least for the Chavez to Reamer camp than it was last time we looked at it, Jim.
Yeah, but it's all Multnomah County. And remember, Multnomah County, heavily Democratic. The Bend area, Deschutes, is also going to be pretty big Democratic, but then there's a lot of places in between, Clackamas County being the biggest one. That's where we're really going to look for things. So this is a little misleading right now. We got to get those other counties in there, and once we get that, then we'll have a better sense of where the election.
It never fails on election night, and the folks who are in support of one particular candidate, they see all the numbers come in, they get all excited. And then all the rest of the numbers come in, and it never fails. U.S. House says 6th District here. Andrea Salinas, 54% of the vote, and Mike Erickson, 44%. Let's move on to the 4th District. Val Hoyle, the Democrat. Alex Garlanos, the Republican. They are a dead heat right now, obviously at 47% to 51,000 votes apiece. We'll be watching that one very, very closely. Over in the state of Washington, the 3rd District, Marie Glusenkamp Perez, if we can bring that up, and Joe Kent. Now we have some numbers on this. Yeah. And this is interesting as we look at this, because we talked about this one earlier too, Jim, because no question about it, everybody thought, well, this is certainly a Republican district here, and Joe Kent has this one sewn up, but as we look at this, it's going to be a battle tonight.
Exactly, and a battle is almost a victory for the Democrat no matter what, because this should be a Republican district. So, yeah, looking at this, clearly good early on, but this is a really diverse district. It's kind of small, but it's really diverse, and we got to wait for votes to come in. As we saw in the primary, Joe Kent was in 3rd place. He was not going through, and then especially from Thurston County, really conservative part of Thurston County in the north part of the district, came in towards the end and pushed him into the final, into this election. So it's going to take a while to figure out how those votes are coming in. Once again, remember, because it's a postmark rule, ballots will come in over the next few days. This, if it sticks, looks like a win for Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, but when it narrows, if it does, then we can't do anything with it.
Gluesenkamp-Perez currently owns an auto shop with her husband in Portland now. We'll see how that goes. U.S. Rep, 4th District, Dan Newhouse and Doug White is 71% of the vote for Newhouse at this point. Doug White with 29%. It looks like not a whole lot of votes at this point. This is something we've been watching closely as well. U.S. Senator Patty Murray and Tiffany Smiley. As we watch this one, what do you see here, Jim? I mean, this is something a lot of folks certainly the last couple of weeks have been saying, hey, Tiffany Smiley might have a shot here.
Yeah, she might have a shot, but she has the problem that Christine Drazen has here. She has to win big in the Seattle area or do better than expected in the Seattle area. And right now, the Seattle area looks like it's holding really strong for Patty Murray. So Tiffany Smiley can certainly win. There's big population centers like the Spokane area on the far eastern side. But right now, it looks good for Patty Murray as we're moving into this. Remember, this just tightened up in the last couple of days, basically about the last 10 days.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll watch it carefully.
Yeah, we are going to carefully, no question about that. Another big race we're following, Joanne Hardesty, Renee Gonzalez, City Commissioner race. Let's go to Megan Allison, who's down there watching that one closely for us. And Megan, what do you have for us? Megan Ellison, we've got the problem with the microphone. This stuff happens on election night. It really does, because everything's happening live and just like this, moment to moment. You never know what's going to happen. And those folks are rushing around trying to get interviews and so on. So I want to bring Jim back in now. As we look at the new numbers in the governor's race, we're going to do that right now, as a matter of fact. And let's see how because last time we saw Tina Kotek had about a 9-point lead.
There we go.
Okay, see, these are the latest numbers. And 46% for Tina Kotek, 44% for Christine Drazen, and Betsy Johnson, 9%. Jim, can you see right now where those numbers are coming from?
I am looking as we talk to do this. Okay, so we are getting the Benton Clatsop. The big thing is that Clackamas has reported.
Clackamas
has reported. So that's the third biggest county, and there Drazen is ahead 46.81 to 43.35, a small lead there. But when you add in the other smaller counties around the state, this is the expected closest that we were looking at there. Still important to me. Remember, Betsy Johnson, less than 10%. Less than 10% is better for Tina Kotek than more than 10%. So Tina Kotek still looks good, but much less good than it looked when we didn't have some of those big counties reporting in there.
Yeah, we're going to, in fact, Betsy Johnson is talking as we speak. Let's take it down there and listen in.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all coming out to Columbia County tonight. The good news is you're going to go home with all 4 of your tires and your catalytic converter attached. Standing up here looking across this room, it's a rare and beautiful sight on election night. I look at this room and I see a cross-section of Oregon. How many other candidates for governor can say the same thing? I'll begin by stating the obvious. It's more fun to win than to lose. But when I decided to run for governor without any party affiliation, to run as an Oregonian, not as a D or an R, I knew the odds were very long, and I didn't care. The last time an unaffiliated candidate won a governor's race in Oregon was 1931. Governor Julius Meyer earned more votes than the Republican and the Democrats combined. Whatever the final tally is, this race was never going to be a loss for me. Why? Why?
You're listening to unaffiliated candidate Betsy Johnson there talking about her campaign where she stands at 9% right now. What we're going to do here, folks, is we're going to just step out right now and do an update for ABC. Stay with us.
From K2 News, this is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
This is the Your Voice, Your Vote update on the 2022 midterm elections. I'm Steve Dunn with K2 political analyst Jim Moore. Moments ago, we received the first ballot returns. Let's get right to them right now. In fact, the race for Oregon governor, if we can look at those numbers, you see a very tight race at this point. Tina Kotek with 46%, Christine Drazen at 44%, and Betsy Johnson at 9%. Let's move on. The race for Portland City Commissioner, position number 3, between Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty. You see the numbers there at 57% for Gonzalez and 43% for Joanne Hardesty. Measure 26-228, which changes the structure of city government in the city of Portland. We'll bring those up right now, and we see the yeses at 56% and the noes at 44%. Those are some big numbers we're watching. 114, which requires a permit for firearms, limits magazine capacity. It's a little tighter than last time we looked at Jim Moore, 51% to 49%. The race for U.S. Representative for Oregon District 5, Lori Chavez-DeRemer versus Jamie McLeod-Skinner. Chavez-DeRemer now at 53% and Jamie McLeod-Skinner at 47%. District number 6 between Andrea Salinas and Mike Erickson. That's a very tight race, about 4 points separating those two at this point. Race for U.S. Representative for District 3, Marie Glusenkamp-Perez and Joe Kent. Look at this one, about 6 points separating those two right now in Southwest Washington. The race for U.S. Senator in Washington, Patty Murray, the Democrat, Tiffany Smiley, the Republican, about 18 points separating those two at this point. K2's Genevieve Rayome was standing by live with initial reaction from the Kotek campaign. And Genevieve, what was it like there right at 8 o'clock tonight?
Well, they still have yet to announce the preliminary results at this point. So as far as I can tell, people in this room do not know that Tina Kotek is ahead by that roughly 3% margin. Right over my shoulder is Ellen Rosenblum. She just led the crowd in a chant saying, "All are welcome here." We also heard from Senator Jeff Merkley. He took the podium for several minutes, just about a half an hour or so ago. But I can tell you the mood has drastically changed here. People are mingling, they're eating, they're drinking, they're celebrating. It has certainly started to liven up. There are 3 bars outside of the ballroom. There is food for people to eat, and people are starting to get excited. They are anticipating that Tina Kotek will win this election, but of course we know it is going to be a tight race. We have yet to hear from Tina Kotek or see Tina Kotek at this point. We know we likely won't hear from her until we get more results coming in, so hopefully within the next hour or 2 she gets up on that podium and gives us an update. But for now, we're hearing from a lot of the top Democrats in the state, and people are crowding into this ballroom, and the energy is certainly starting to get a lot more electric here at the Hyatt Regency in Northeast Portland. Steve, back to you.
You gotta love election day energy for sure. Genevieve Rayome, thank you. I want to get right to Jim Moore and talk about those numbers we saw with Kotek on the lead. What does this tell you? It's a slim lead at this point, but do you see anything there?
Yeah, I do see something there. Lane County, heavily Democratic, has not reported yet. That will be good for Tina Kotek. Most of the rest of the state already has reported. So it looks to me, if I was going to bet you, I'd go up to betting $1 now instead of a nickel that Tina Kotek would win. But there's still a lot of votes that are out there to come in. But Lane County will be key.
Anything else stand out to you as we're seeing these numbers come in?
The tightening up of the 5th Congressional District. That's because Clackamas County reported in there. We knew it would be a really tight fight. Clackamas County would be key. So good for Lori Chavez-DeRemer at this early stage.
Oh, this is so fun, isn't it?
Absolutely.
All this stuff comes in. Thanks for watching us. Another update in a half hour right here on K2. I'm going back to KATU.com to continue our conversation on the elections. I'll be back soon.
K2 News. This is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
This is when it gets really fun. All the numbers really start to come in now. I'm joined by Jim Moore, our political analyst, and also Ray Gazaway is following some big numbers in some state houses and some other things going on tonight. Ray, what do you have for us?
Yeah, we're looking at Congressional District 5 right now with about 200,000 votes reported right now. Lori Chavez-Dreamer, the Republican, is in the lead over Jamie McLeod Skinner, the Democrat, 53% to 47%. You see it right there, about 105,000 votes for Lori Chavez-Dreamer over Jamie McLeod Skinner, who has 95,000 votes. Let's go to the 6th district. You see a pretty tight race there as well between Democrat Andrea Salinas and Republican Mike Erickson. 51 to 47%, 78,000 votes or so for Andrea Salinas, 72,000 for Mike Erickson. If we go to District 4, Republican Alex Scarlatos and Democrat Val Hoyle also in a very tight race there. Both at about 47% of the vote, 52,000 for Alex Scarlatos as well as 51,000 for Val Hoyle. So we're certainly getting some numbers in that 5th district race between Chavez-Dreamer and McLeod Skinner, where we've seen the biggest update with Clackamas County coming in. Chavez-Dreamer actually taking the lead there, about a 6-point lead right now in District 5. Steve.
All right. We'll talk to you very soon. Jim Moore, I want to bring you back in and talk about that Chavez-Dreamer and McLeod Skinner race right now. Because when we first got the numbers, it was like 70 to 10 or something like that. It is obviously a switch now in favor of Chavez-Dreamer. Anything stand out there for you? Is this obviously good news for the Chavez-Dreamer candidate?
It absolutely is. So what we do right now, looking at the number of votes that are counted, it looks like all the votes that had come in by this morning. So now there are statewide probably about 500,000 more votes out there. So do the math. That means there's probably about 850,000 that are out there that might, or do the math of 1/6 of 500,000,
right.
Whatever that is.
I'll let you do the math.
Exactly. But that's still out there for that congressional district. Now, does it hold the same pattern, which means Chavez-Dreamer wins, or is it last-minute voters? So here's good news if you're a Democrat. The Democrats have been voting at a slower rate than expected. So if they catch up, they may catch up in this race. We may not know till tomorrow morning, but that's what we're going to be looking for. Remember, the biggest county is Clackamas. They said they were going to have one bunch of numbers. They've done it. They're not going to do it until tomorrow afternoon again. So that's what we'll be watching. But those are the kinds of things. And so it's for all the congressional races as well. Okay, we've got those numbers in from this morning. Now there's this huge bunch of 500,000 more that came in today. Do they follow the same pattern, or are they somehow different with people who waited to the last minute?
All right, Jim, thank you for that. I want to bring up those numbers one more time before we go Joe English, if we can. U.S. Rep. 3rd District, Marie Glusenkamp Perez and Joe Kent. Do we have those numbers we can bring up? There we go, 53% to 47% right now, and I think this is certainly surprising a few folks out there. Let's go to Joe English, who's covering this from the Glusenkamp Perez camp. And Joe, what can you tell us?
Well, we heard from Clark County Auditor Greg Kimsey about half an hour ago that he says Marie Glusenkamp Perez has won Clark County. Of course, there are a lot of other counties in the 3rd Congressional District, but he said she has 58+% of the vote in Clark County. A lot of cheers coming up from this group about that and some other races. We're hearing from some speakers right now. Monica Stonier is at the podium right now as we wait to hear from Marie Glusenkamp Perez. We're at the Hilton in Vancouver with the Democrats in Clark County, and we'll be trying to make our way up to see and talk with Joe Kent as well. Right now, the race pretty close, about 6% is those numbers I think are still fairly accurate. They're looking at a win at this gathering anyway, as far as Marie Glusenkamp Perez is concerned. So she is supposedly on her way in a while. Wanted to check with the numbers and make sure that she was on the winning side or losing side. She'll be out here either way. So that's where we stand right now. In Vancouver, Joe English, K2 News.
All right, Joe, let us know when she does come out. We appreciate that very much. I want to talk some more, Jim Moore, about the Hardesty Rene Gonzalez contest that's going on now. And certainly, Joanne Hardesty has served one term as a commissioner at this point. She looks to be in a bit of trouble. What happened for her, Jim?
Oh, well, she became the voice of change and the voice of frustration with especially the police department here in Portland. And that made her a target, because remember, there's a lot of people who say the problem isn't with the police, the problem is with the protesters and people who don't express themselves right. And then other people say, no, the police are the problem. Clearly, this race, the argument was won by the police are doing the right thing, and the solutions for homelessness and protests and all those kinds of things were the wrong thing. Notable, though, it's not that far apart. I mean, this is not a blowout here. Portland is still clearly divided. There are a lot of people on Joanne Hardesty's side. We'll see if this holds up through the evening. Usually these do pretty much hold up, but we'll see if it holds up through the evening. But it means that, 40-45% of Portlanders say we've got some big issues we need to change. Now, they also voted for the city charter change. So we may see change come through that venue. The thing is, that doesn't happen tomorrow. That basically takes a couple of years to basically be put in place.
I interviewed these two on Your Voice, Your Vote. Jim, we talked about this. Renee Gonzalez said, while I had both of them on, he said to her, Joanne Hardesty, you are the face of the defund police movement. And whether that's true or not, I think that's stuck with some folks, don't you think?
They're definitely stuck, and it's a very powerful message. We've seen that at congressional races. We've seen it across the country. We've seen it all over the place. It's a very powerful message. The reality is not that simple, but bumper stickers win in elections. The slogans win, and defund the police, man, it fits great on a bumper sticker.
Well, Megan Ellison certainly been covering this campaign. She joins us now with the very latest. Megan, what's happening?
Well, Steve, I'm going to talk really loud, so hopefully you can hear me in here. It is lively. Despite the results coming in, we saw Joanne Hardesty dancing up to the stage earlier, voicing optimism. She was chatting to the crowd. She was saying no matter what happens after tonight, she is still going to be involved in trying to make Portland a better place. Here's a look at what we heard from her just a few minutes ago.
We know that Portlanders understand the choice ahead. We will be a city where all of us will thrive, but we'll go back to saying everything is just
here. We're expecting to hear more from her in the next hour, so we'll continue to stay tuned. We know that Gonzalez is also hosting a party in downtown Portland, so we'll be checking in with his team as well, seeing what type of optimism is coming from that side of the race coming up in the next few hours. I'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Megan, thank you very much. And I blamed the microphone earlier. I think it's just that terrific band in the background that was kind of drowning her out a little bit. I want to go through some of these main races again because that's at home what you're waiting for. Once again, look at this one, Jim.
Yeah.
46% to 45%. Tina Kotek over Christine Drazen. As you look, Jim, because you all have the information right in front of you, where are these ones coming from?
They're coming from around the state, and so it's expected. Christine Drazen's going to do well in the traditional Republican heartlands, which is everywhere except where there's a medium to large size city, and so she is doing well. Now, important, she's doing well in Deschutes County, which has become more Democratic over time. She's ahead by about 3 percentage points, but we're still missing that big Democratic district county, Wayne County. And so when that comes in, we'll all of a sudden know more about the congressional race down there, District 4. We'll know a lot more about the gubernatorial race. But it looks good, but close. It looks good right now for Tina Kotek.
Okay. Let's see what happens next. We move on to Renee Gonzalez, Joanne Hardesty. We just were at the Hardesty camp there, 57%. These numbers haven't changed too much, 43% for Hardesty. Moving on, 26-28, changes city government structure in the city of Portland, 56% to 44% now. It's picked up a couple of percentage points since the last time we looked at that one. Measure 114, that is the gun measure. Now that's definitely tightening up, Jim Moore. We'll be watching that one closely, 51% to 49%. U.S. House, let's start with the 5th District here. And Nori Chavez Reamer at 53% and Jamie McLeod Skinner at 47%. 6th District now between Andrea Salinas and Mike Erickson. Still about 4 points for those two, and hard to tell if that one's going to change at all depending on what's coming in, and I'll have Jim take a look at where those numbers are coming from. U.S. Rep, 4th District, Val Hoyle, the Democrat, Alex Scarlatos, the Republican. They are deadlocked, and this number hasn't moved much at all at 47% apiece. Moving on to Representative 3rd District, and this would be certainly one of those national shockers, Jim Moore, no question about it. Marie Glusenkamp Perez at 53% and Joe Kent at 47%. Let's take Glusenkamp-Perez now. She is speaking.
And I promise you this tonight. If we emerge victorious, I will work. When we emerge victorious, I will work every day for working families like ours, like yours, like the ones in our 3rd Congressional District. So I am confident that we are going to win this, but to my mind, the final outcome of this campaign has been a huge success. To the thousands of donors and the hundreds of volunteers, the door knockers, the phone bankers, the texters, the people who have donated so much of their time and their energy and their resources to getting us here. My dedicated and tireless campaign team, thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That energy, that enthusiasm, that sense that I have a community that has my back, that has really guided me and energized me through this entire campaign. It's been so inspiring to see so many voters come together from across the district and responding to our message of unity, of bringing people together and finding common ground across the divides. And also, I want to say a very special thank you to all of the moderates and Republicans and independents who joined with
Marie Glusenkamp-Perez right now with a lead over Joe Kent, and that's something that certainly the nation will be watching. Currently owns an auto shop in the city of Portland and has no political experience, but we're going to follow that one closely. We're going to move on to state bonds and measures list. And Jim, let's look at these right now because this is Measure 111. The state must ensure affordable health care.
Votes. So if you're in a place that voted big for Christine Drazen, you voted no on this. If you're in a place where you voted for Tina Kotek, you voted yes on this. So the bigger counties are carrying this. Other places, Vermont, there's 6 other states that have this on the ballot right now. It's not going to be this close in those other states. So this is going to say something. Remember, Oregon has a long and sordid history with racism going back to before the state became a state. And people are going to look at this and say, yeah, you got rid of slavery, but why was it so hard to do that?
I want to look at Measure 113 now. This is absent legislators cannot run in the next election if they miss so many sessions. As a matter of fact, the yes is 68%, the no's at 32% there. And this, of course, came from the walkouts we had in the legislature, most recently the Republicans, but the Democrats have done the same thing, Jim. As you look at these numbers, what do you think?
Well, I thought this would be very, very close because the Republicans would be in favor of it. No, Republicans are not in favor of it. So this says that people look at it and said, yeah, legislators ought to actually show up and do their work. So it'll be fascinating. Christine Drazen wins the governorship. She led one of the walkouts. She took part in some of them. What if she decides as governor she's going to start vetoing things or let things not go into law without her signature? Are people going to accuse her of doing something that now the legislature can't?
Jim, as you look at those numbers, where are those coming from? Because that's key, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely key. Once again, Lane County, big Democratic area, has not reported in, but it's important in Marion County, which is basically the 4th biggest county in the state. This is passing 55 to 45%. So this is being defeated in Multnomah County and Washington County. Those are the places that are defeating it, and it's pretty close. This is normal for gun control measures. People look at the Second Amendment, they look at all those kinds of things. So in Oregon, does it pass or fail? It's always really close because it's those bigger urban, suburban areas against kind of the rest of the state, and we're seeing that dynamic right now.
Okay, let's move on to charter reform and see how those numbers are going now. Before I want to talk to Wright Gazaway, can we bring that number up? Charter reform numbers? 56% yes, 44% no. Wright Gazaway, you've covered this in depth for several weeks now, as a matter of fact. What are you hearing and what are you seeing?
Early, but a lot of people clearly in favor of this. Measure 26-228 as it was on the ballot. Some pretty big changes in Portland. It changes the form of government away from this commission style to a more council that passes policy, and they're going to hire a city administrator if this measure were to pass. It would also divide the city council up by districts and grow that council to 12 people and change the way those people are elected. What's different about this has been voted on so many times in the past, it's never passed, is that this was an extremely expensive race. The campaign for these changes raised $830,000 in cash. They spent about every dollar of that, including a big chunk of that over the last couple of weeks, sending mailers to people. If you live in Portland, you got a lot of flyers about this. They clearly were trying to educate people on what exactly this was doing. The No campaign did not raise anywhere near that amount of money. A lot of the money for this measure was raised from people out of state, a lot of organizations in support of ranked choice voting, organizations that were really trying to get Portland to change this form of government. A lot of people were unsure how this would end up. This is obviously very early preliminary results, but 56% of voters so far are saying they're fed up and want some change.
It'll be interesting to see if this does pass, how exactly they're going to pay for it.
And that's the other thing. You have this race between Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty. If this passes, that becomes a 2-year term. Right. The city of Portland elects 12 new city council members in 2024. The money is another thing. Yeah. Is how much is it going to cost a year? And right now, the cost estimate is pretty broad.
Yeah, because you have to add staff and offices and everything else.
And I don't think they know how much it will cost.
Yeah, right. Let's move on to Portland Community College bonds to renovate and modernize facilities. Let's see how that one is doing. The yeses, 67%, the no's, 33%. And Jim, we talked about this earlier too. In this day of inflation right now, high inflation, high gas prices and so on, would people approve these college bonds? And at this point, they are.
Yeah, they are. The only county that's voting against it is Columbia County. Big passes in Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington. You know, something happened weird during the pandemic. Usually when there's a huge economic hit, people flood into community colleges. When the pandemic hit, people ran away from community colleges. They took record dips in enrollment. Right now, it's kind of a more normal nervousness about the economy. People may be looking at this and say, wow, construction jobs, improved classroom safety, technology, that sounds like something I want to invest in because that's the future, that's where I want my kids to go to, that's where I want to go to. And these in the Portland area have been passing pretty regularly. I'm a little bit surprised it's passing this big, just like we talked about in this time of economic uncertainty and high inflation. People are looking out there saying, wow, the turkey at Thanksgiving is going to cost a lot more. Do I want to commit myself to over X number of years paying this much for the PCC system? And people have said clearly by 2-to-1 at this point, yes.
Let's move on to the Metro Nature Levy. Renews the levy to protect natural areas and water quality and fish. The yeses on that one. A big 74% to no, 26%. Multnomah County replaces gender binary pronouns with gender neutral terms. Let's see how that one is doing now. 61% saying yes, 39% no on that. Multnomah County extending the right to vote to non-citizens. The no's 57%, the yes is 43%. And Jim, I saw you react to that. What are you thinking?
Well, this is interesting because we had several years ago, people may remember, there was the legislature bipartisan passed so that anybody who was in the country could get a driver's license. And then it was referred to the voters, and we thought it would be kind of rural, urban, or whatever. It was defeated across the state. Absolutely. So here we have Multnomah County when they're doing this, and places like New York are doing this or thinking of it. Chicago, small towns in Vermont have been doing this. This is not wacky stuff. And yet when people look at it, it looks like, wow, I think non-citizens getting the right to vote, I think that's a bridge too far in Multnomah County at this point.
Okay, let's move on to the next one now. This would be Multnomah County ranked choice voting. Let's see how that one is doing now and bring that number up.
Yep, there it is.
Okay, yes is 67%, the no is 33% on that one. Anything stand out, Jim?
If you live in the city of Portland and in Multnomah County, if things hold as they are, you're going to have very different ballots from here on out. form of ranked choice for Portland City races and ranked choice for Multnomah County, so you better get used to it and learn how it works.
Multnomah County add ombudsperson to county auditor's office. Probably not something a lot of people pay attention to, but it is winning 85% to 15%, Jim.
Yeah, no problem there. Ombuds people are good. It's a neutral person you can go and talk to. Having it in there makes sense.
And Multnomah County allows the auditor unrestricted access to information. We see that one coming up at 58% no, and the yes is at 42%. In Clark County Charter Amendment, if approved, ranked choice voting would be used in county elected offices there. We see the numbers 58 to 42. In Salem infrastructure bond for streets, sidewalks, and parks, the yes is 66% to 34% no. In Happy Valley renews parks and recreation levy. Yes is 75% to 25%. Tualatin bonds for trails, parks, and river access 53 to 47. The yes is winning that one. Out in Forest Grove, the school district bonds to increase safety, update the classrooms. Yeses by about 8 percentage points, 54 to 46. Beaverton School District renews a 5-year local option levy, great. 70 to 30 out in Beaverton right now. And moving on, as we see, as we look at those, Jim, okay, anything stand out to you, the ones I just read through quickly?
A whole bunch of them are passing. You know, once again, we the same kind of thing as with talking about the PCC bond. You know, this adds to people's property taxes. It's going to raise their costs permanently, and yet people are saying we need to do that. Whether that's we need more parks, we need to keep doing parks, whether that's a bond for a school so we can do things there, build a building, whatever it is, people are willing to take that on. Does that mean they're looking at the recession that we might be going into as more of a short-term thing? I don't know, but it's different. There was one thing that stuck out there. Clark County, also ranked choice voting there, going down big. So often in Clark County, I used to live there. You talk about don't turn us into Portland. Well, on their voting tonight, they're saying don't turn us into Portland in Multnomah County voting.
With high price of everything these days, are you surprised at all that so many of these are passing?
Yeah, when we've looked at I've looked at Oregon going back forever, and people have looked at the entire country. When there's more uncertain economic times, people tend to vote no on these bond measures and things that are going to raise your property taxes. Here in the Portland area, we're seeing people are saying, you know what, we need this stuff, let's do it. Let's turn out. Now remember, this is it. Right now it looks like I would guess about 30 to 40% of the total votes coming in. So there's going to be a big chunk of votes that are going to come in at 10 o'clock. That will either confirm patterns or change them, and then more votes are going to come in tomorrow. But right now, it looks like people want to spend the money.
Let's take a look, if we can, into the booth. If we can bring up the governor's race one more time.
45-45.
Ooh, boy. This is, you know, we knew this was going to be one of those nights where good chance we would not know who won this race until perhaps tomorrow. Let's go out to Genevieve Rayom standing by at the Kotech camp. And last we heard that Tina had not come out yet, but Genevieve, is she out there yet?
No sign of Tina Kotek yet. I am sure she is closely watching the results right now because, as you guys have been mentioning, it is heating up. The race is within about 1%. We've got a very close heat between Christine Drazen and, of course, Tina Kotek. So we have yet to see her or hear from her. We have heard from several prominent Democrats in Oregon, though. That includes Dr. Rosa Colquitt. She is the vice chair of the Oregon Party of Democrats. I talked with her just about 20 minutes ago and asked her how she's feeling because, as you can tell, the energy in the room is very high. But when I spoke with her, she mentioned that she's pretty nervous. Take a listen.
The anxiety is there. I have to admit it. I'll see how I'm feeling 24 hours or so as our results begin to come in. But tonight I am feeling a little anxiety. But I try never to allow it to overcome my hope. I live with hope every day. And we're going to have a good tomorrow, whatever happens tonight. Oregon's going to have a good tomorrow.
Do you feel like people are nervous in the room tonight?
I do think that they are. I think sometimes we listen to the pollsters too often, and it comes with the territory. You kind of want to get a gauge as to what's happening, and so you do listen to some of the polls. But I think there's anxiety, but I also see excitement and I see hope.
her ending message there is that she is hopeful and she sees whatever comes tomorrow as just the reality, and she is hopeful for the Oregon's future. And that is similar to what we heard from Tina Kotek earlier in the day. She mentioned all of the people who are coming out to vote. She was very excited by that. She said this is democracy in action no matter what happens. And I've definitely heard that message from a lot of the Democrats who've spoken here today, is that whatever happens, happens. This is an amazing day. It is our civic duty on display. There is excitement, there is energy in this room, but again, also a lot of nerves, because there is a potential that Oregon sees its first Republican Republican governor in 40 years. So Steve, we'll keep a close eye on it, and once we see Tina, we'll be sure to let you know.
Certainly nervous, I'm sure, over in Silverton as well tonight. Genevieve Realm, no doubt about it. These folks, as they watch these numbers come in and they see a 45-45, and they're just, think about this. They've been doing this for months, and some, in fact, for a year, campaigning, and it come down to tonight where it's so incredibly close. Jim, what's going through their head?
What's going through their heads? Confusion, hope, but still maybe resignation already. Right now, Kotek leads by 9,002 votes out of almost more than 1 million cast at this point. And Wayne County, that Democratic stronghold, still has not reported. So if I were on that side, I'd say, you know, I think we can relax a bit, but they're not going to do it until Lane County comes in.
Jim, we're going to take another break here and do an update for ABC. And the folks who are watching us now at K2.com, hang with us, because we'll be right back after we do this.
From K2 News, this is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
This is a Your Voice, Your Vote update on the 2022 midterm elections. I'm Steve Dunn. Polls closed at 8 o'clock just about an hour ago. We're getting early numbers. Let's take a look at this right now. The race for governor in Oregon, Tina Kotek, Christine Drazan, Betsy Johnson. You see 45% for Tina Kotek, 45% for Drazan, and 9% for Betsy Johnson. We've seen that gap definitely get closer over the last hour. The race for Portland City Commissioner, position number 3, Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty. Right now, Renee Gonzalez with the lead at 57%. Joanne Hardesty, who served 1 term at this point as a commissioner, with 43%. Let's move on. The race for U.S. Representative for Oregon District 5. Lori Chavez-DeRemer, the Republican. Jamie McLeod-Skinner, the Democrat. We see 53% for Chavez-DeRemer. McLeod-Skinner at 47%. The race for U.S. Rep for Washington District number 3. Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez and Joe Kent, the Republican. We see 6 points separating those two, which will certainly be a surprise for a lot of folks out there. We're watching that one closely. Measure 114, which requires permit for firearms, limits magazine capacity. We bring that number up right now. We can tell you that 51% to 49, the yeses lead. You can follow along with K2's local coverage election right now by heading over to KATU.com. We're breaking down local returns and keeping track of the big local races important to you. I'll be back in a half hour with another Your Voice, Your Vote update. I'm Steve Dunn. We'll see you soon.
From K2 News, this is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
Welcome back, everybody. We continue our coverage now, and we're going to go right out to Senator Ron Wyden, who is speaking. Wyden, who certainly has not lost an election and has never had a close race, as a matter of fact. Let's go out to him right now and hear what he has to say.
Those of us willing to battle big oil, big pharma, and big money have been attacked through the worst sorts of lies and libel. Lies and libel designed to rally the far-right base and provoke violence in communities across the country. I want everybody to know that never, never will we accept those kinds of approaches, because we are committed to democracy winning every election, every election. Because the fact is, tyranny only needs to win once. And on our watch, we're not going to let that happen. So I'm optimistic tonight, and I know my outstanding Senate partner, Jeff Merkley, is as well, that the end of this journey will ultimately put Tina Kotek in the driver's seat to move Oregon forward. And I'm just as confident that the talented women who are running for Congress, Val Hoyle, Andrea Salinas, and Jamie McLeod Skinner, are going to join me in Washington, D.C. And I think that what this election comes down to, after you've listened to all the talking heads and the like, we'll do a kind of little Oregon poll. And that is, do we want to move forward with everybody aboard, or are we going to let the extremists yank us back to benefit a privileged few? I know
you're listening to a very optimistic Senator Ron Wyden talking tonight, and we're going to move on now and talk about some of the races that we're following very, very closely, the main ones. If we can bring up the governor's race now and look at those numbers, and Jim, we'll talk about this because this has been very tight, certainly over the last 20 minutes as we look at that race. And there it is, 46-44 now. The 2-point lead for Tina Kotek. Betsy Johnson still sitting at 9%. And Jim, what's happening here? Is Lane County in yet?
No, Lane County is not in yet. I'm going to press the refresh button to see if they have shown up. Lane County hasn't reported yet. So this is just the regular settling that happens. So if you're a Democrat, here's a couple of things to think. Remember, Multnomah County is going to report again in about an hour, about 10 o'clock. So that'll be a big bunch of Kotek votes that come in. But if you're a Drazen person, Clackamas County isn't going to report again until tomorrow. And so we'll see how those balance out. But Lane County is crucial, and we're just not seeing it quite yet. Let me go down here really quick. They put it in the middle of the alphabet, so it's harder to find. Oh, though they have reported. They're in. So that's why the movement just happened there. That's why we saw the movement. Yeah, Kotek is ahead there, 52% to 40%. And so that statewide edges it up just a little bit. So now we wait for everything to settle down. Multnomah County will be the next big dump that comes in, but then the Republican ones will come in as well. Usually, once again, the pattern is set by now, but we have a couple of things here. Did people who voted later, did they vote differently? Remember, Democrats were voting at a lower rate, so if they turned out today, that'll be good for Kotek. But if it's what we've seen in 2020 and in our primary here, that means Republicans will come in the later ballots, and that'll be good for Drazen.
All right, stand by, Jim. I'm going to go through some of these races and see what stands out to you when we get to the end of it. Portland City Commissioner, position 3, Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty. Again, that number's been stuck at 57% to 43% for Hardesty. 26-228 changes city government structure there. Again, that's still standing at 56% yes, the no's at 44. Measure 114 requiring a permit for firearms, limiting magazine capacity, still just a real slim lead for the yeses on that one. Let's go to the Oregon House 5th District. Lori Chavez-DeRemer, the Republican, over Jamie McLeod Skinner, the Democrat, 53-47 there. That has not moved. 6th District, Andrea Salinas and Mike Erickson. That's about 4%, which it has been since we've been following that one. Moving on to the 4th District, which is Val Hoyle and Alex Scarlatos, and that one is a 10 8-point lead now. It's completely changed. They were tied just moments ago.
That's Lane County.
Yep, that's Lane County. Those are the numbers coming in. You're right, Jim. Washington, U.S. Rep, 3rd District. Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, the Democrat. Joe Kent, the Republican. This is one that could be an absolute stunner as we look at that number. Dan Newhouse and Doug White. Newhouse with a big lead at 69% over Doug White on that one. And then Patty Murray and Tiffany Smiley. This is one we've been watching, but it appears though Patty Murray is taking a big-time lead on that one at 57-43. Let's move on. We haven't seen these numbers yet. Clark County Sheriff Ray Reynolds and John Horch. And we see Horch with 60% and Ray Reynolds at 40% in Clark County. Multnomah County Sheriff Sharon Mirren and Jessica Vega Peterson. Boy, this is one I know I asked you earlier in the week who's going to win this. I have absolutely no idea. It's one of those we're not quite sure. 52-48, Jessica Vega Peterson with a lead on this one. As you look at all these numbers, Jim, what stands out to you?
I think a couple of things stand out. First of all, this one, the Multnomah County Chair. Remember, there were some places that endorsed one in the May primary and then switched and endorsed the other one. And they're looking at specificity in terms of their programs. They both sit on the county commission right now, so whoever loses will be on the county commission for at least another 2 years with whoever wins. So looking at how they work together is going to be really crucial. So that's really interesting. Another interesting one is that Clark County Sheriff's race. The person who is ahead right
John
there,
Horch,
John Horch. John Horch is basically well known in the community, those kinds of things, but it pits a bit of a Republican versus non-Republican or not Trump Republican kind of thing going on there. And so watching it play out, especially in right of the Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, where she's ahead in Clark County, we got some really interesting dynamics going. Remember, this hooks into national kinds of things. Trump Republicans, a bunch of them won, 93% won their primaries. Are they going to win the general election? And we're seeing that right now. Early, some of them were losing, some of them were winning. Why is that important? Because it plays into whether or not Donald Trump becomes a very strong candidate for president or a weaker candidate for president as he moves forward.
We haven't heard from the Drazen camp for a while, so we're going to do that right now. Let's go out to Eric Mock, who's covering the Drazen folks in Silverton. And Eric, take it away.
Yeah, we get a big reaction from the crowd here every time, we do one of our cut-ins on ABC News. They've got ABC on the big screen here, and every time we pop up with the governor's numbers, you get a big cheer from the crowd when they see that Christine Drazen is neck and neck with Tina Kotek, 45%. The crowd was very energized to see that. There was a lot of shouting, a lot of cheers, a lot of applause when they saw that. And then we also had the campaign chair, Shelley Bosher Davis, who got up here. She's a state rep from Albany. And actually, we have a soundbite from her talking about their thoughts right now about the race. Let's go to that.
I just spoke with Christine. She's feeling really good. We're encouraged by the early numbers that are coming in, and we're encouraged by the numbers that we believe are going to be coming in. So buckle up. Christine feels great, and she's excited to speak to you guys later tonight.
Now, emphasis on later tonight. We've been talking with her campaign manager, and he said not to expect her possibly before 10 p.m. Because they're really waiting. They want to try to see if they can get some more clear results before she comes out. But as I heard Steve and Jim, you guys talking, I mean, it sounds like we're not going to have maybe some clear results tonight when we still are waiting on Clackamas County. And her campaign is very eagerly awaiting Clackamas County because they're really counting on a lot of Republican votes to come from that region. But the crowd, very energized. You heard their energy when the campaign manager came out, so we can only imagine what it's going to be like when Christine Drazen comes out to address the crowd. But still a lot of hope here. They see those very, very tight numbers. We'll keep you guys updated throughout the night here. For now, live in Silverton, Eric Mock, K2 News.
All right, Eric, thank you very much. Another thing that happens in election night, a whole lot of waiting going on. We're seeing that certainly at the Drazen camp as well tonight. Christina Giardinelli, we might have some audio issues with you. Can you say a couple of words, Christina, real quick? Yeah. I think you got to reset the live view, and we'll take care of that. Let's go back to Genevieve Rayom, who is with Senator Ron Wyden now. Let's take that one and listen and see what the senator has to say. Genevieve?
Yeah, Steve, we just pulled Senator Ron Wyden away. Thank you for taking some time. I know you just stepped off the podium. You're in the lead right now by about 15%. We know control of Congress is essential for the Democrats. This is a very important election for everybody. Can you talk about how you're feeling about not just your race, but all of the Democrats in Congress?
I'm encouraged because we have made the point that we have the fresh ideas to attack inflation and deal with these kitchen table issues that are making it so hard for families to afford necessities. For example, on stage, I just mentioned the law that I wrote to stop pharmaceutical price gouging just went into effect. Now, when these big pharma companies hit seniors and others with price hikes above inflation, the big pharma people are going to pay a penalty. Those are the kinds of kitchen table issues that I think connected with voters.
How are you feeling about the race for governor right now? It is neck and neck. It was about a percentage point apart at this point. I talked with Dr. Rosa Colquitt, who is the vice chair of the Democratic Party of Oregon. She mentioned she's really nervous about tonight. How are you feeling?
I still feel we're going to prevail because as I got out and listened to Oregonians, they don't want to turn back the clock on women's rights. They don't want to turn back the clock in fighting climate change. They don't want to turn back the clock on some of the new approaches that we've developed that bring mental health and law enforcement together. We're talking about the kinds of issues that speak to what Oregonians are talking about in their homes and their communities.
So leaving here tonight, you're feeling confident?
We know it's early. I've told Oregonians it's kind of like a car ride. You buckle up because you got a ways to go, but we're feeling good.
Senator Ron Wyden, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for
Steve,
having me.
back to you.
Genevieve, thank you. We appreciate that. Let's take a look at some other numbers now, if we can. Oregon State Senator District 3, this is Jeff Golden and Randy Sparacino, the Republican Sparacino, Golden, the Democrat. Let's see what's happening there. We see Golden 52% and Sparacino at 48% now. Let's move on now. The Oregon State Senator District 10, Raquel Moore Green, the Republican. Deb Patterson is the Democrat. There we see Patterson with about an 8-point lead at this point. Oregon State Senator District 11, Richard Walsh, the Democrat. Kim Thatcher, the Republican there. Thatcher leading with 53% of the vote. State Senator District 16, Melissa Bush and Suzanne Weber. Weber, the Republican there, and we see Weber with a 10-point lead there. Mark Meek and Bill Kennemer. This has been one we've been watching closely. State senators, they're even up at 50. You can't get any closer than that, really, 50% apiece. State Rep 12th District, Charlie Conrad, the Republican. Michelle Emmons, the Democrat. We see Conrad at 57% of the vote. State Rep 21st District, Kevin Mannix, the Republican. Ramiro Navarro Jr. and Mannix at 52% and Ramiro with 46. State Rep 22nd District, Tracy Kramer and Anthony Medina, and Kramer at 53% and Medina 47. State Rep 24th District, Victoria Ernst, the Democrat. Lucetta Elmer is the Republican, and a big lead for Elmer at this point. State Rep 32nd District, Cyrus Javadi, the Republican, and Logan Lady is the Democrat, and they are evened up at 50 apiece as well. State Rep 52nd District, Darcy Long, the Democrat. What's going on out there? Jeff Helfrich, we got a lot of 50-50s happening at this point. And State Rep 53rd District, Michael Sipe, the Republican. Emerson Levy is the Democrat with a 2-point lead. Levy does. Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries Commissioner Christina Stevenson and Sherry Helt. Let's see what those numbers look at, if we can bring up that number. Can we bring those up before we go to Jim? Yep, there we go. Stevenson and Helt, 61% to 39%. Let's go back to Jim now. You see those. And we've been watching those House Senate numbers, Jim, especially when you talk about a supermajority, right? Absolutely. I'm going to have to go back and do the math and see where this has settled down. But I thought you were quicker than that.
Yeah, exactly. Woo, I've been out here with you.
That's true.
No, but it's fascinating because in a lot of them, the Democrats had a lead, but the Republicans were spending money like it was going out of style. And it looks like in most of those cases, the Republican money did not overcome the Democratic advantage unless the Republican had something. So Kim Thatcher is in there. Kim Thatcher, strong Republican. She ran for Secretary of State 2 years ago. She looks like she's going to be elected into the Senate in what in effect is a new district. This is Peter Courtney, who is the Democratic leader of the Senate. It's his district, but it's been rejiggered. She got kind of moved into that. And so it looks like she's going to win that name recognition really won out in that particular case. But looking at it, just at the top of my head, I'm going to have to go through and look at these, and I have my sheets to count it all up. It looks to me like, as we suspected, the Democrats keep majorities, but they will have smaller majorities.
So no supermajority.
Probably not supermajority. Once again, I got to go through and do the math on that. And so that's big only for taxes. Other than that, it's kind of bragging rights. But remember, it was Betsy Johnson came out of the supermajority system because she was the pivotal vote. She became a very powerful player. So we could basically set up new people to have that power, be that crucial vote.
You built me up for the perfect segue.
Perfect.
Because we're going to the Betsy Johnson camp now, and we've got a microphone working and Christine Giardinelli ready to go. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that perfect segue because, in fact, the message behind her speech, and it was essentially a concession speech tonight, was just that even though they weren't, didn't win this election, that there was a sense of Oregon voters wanting something more down the middle. That is what her message was tonight. That is what she talked about. Not a ton of disappointment in the room either. Came out in her message in the room. The supporters saying they weren't really expecting a big win tonight, but they do feel that they made headway in this election.
I have absolutely no regrets and make no apologies for joining this fight for Oregon.
And you just heard her, of course, saying she is glad she ran. She fought, the long fight. She wasn't willing to concede the race until just a few minutes ago when she gave that speech. We'll have more coverage for you on the results tonight coming up. But for now, live in St. Helens, Christina Giardinelli, K2 News.
All right, Christina, thank you for that. Another big race, of course, we're watching is City Commissioner Renee Gonzalez, Joanne Hardesty, and Megan Allison joins us now. And you're down there with the Renee Gonzalez folks right now, Megan?
Yeah, Steve, and a lot of optimism out here. We have watched Gonzalez circulate through the crowd, smiling, shaking hands, high fives. There is high energy in the room tonight. We got the chance to speak with him just a few minutes ago. Here's a look at what that optimism was that we heard.
We're feeling good. It's a good start to the night. We'll see how it finishes up, but we like the way it's heading.
Why does he believe that he is at this point in the polls? And he was saying that he believes that Portlanders were ready for change. So I asked, what could that change look like if he is to take on this role? And he did mention some of those key priorities that we've heard from him over the last few months: homelessness, crime, bringing vitality back to the city. He mentioned once again the need for more shelter space and reiterated that he is on board with the mayor's plan that involves a ban on unsanctioned camping. He says for now he wants to just think about collaborating with the people who he'll be working with. But again, a lot of optimism here. We're going to continue to stick around. They said they'll be watching the results up until 10 o'clock to see what the changes may look like. But so far, Gonzalez says he's feeling good. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
He said he'd be providing some tough love when it comes to the homeless situation in downtown Portland. Thank you, Megan Allison, for that. Let's go over to Wright Gazaway, who's following some more numbers for us, right?
Yeah, we're looking at the congressional races in Oregon, the 4th, 5th, and 6th districts. We'll start in the 4th. A new batch of votes in there has Val Hoyle, the Democrat, with about a 10-point lead over Republican Alex Scarlato. She has about 128,000 votes to Scarlato's 104,000 votes, so about 250,000 votes when you factor in some of the third-party candidates there added up. There's that lead in the 4th district. In the 5th district, no major updates since the last time we looked at it. Lori Chavez-Dreamer, the Republican, with a lead there. This is the 6th district here. Andrea Salinas and Mike Erickson. You see Salinas with a slight lead, 51% to 47%. We just had that charter reform measure up, 26-228. That changes the form of government in Portland. Since we last checked in on that, the campaign for those changes, guys, has actually declared victory there. They say that they're going to feel like that yes will pass. That's obviously preliminary. No one's called that race, but the campaign for it is claiming victory. The city administrator did have a press availability here pretty recently. The next step, if this were to pass, was the city would have to come up with 4 districts, and that's a long process. The public will be very involved in that, but that would be the next process as far as the city administration, where they would go from here. But they're still watching this. 56% of the votes in favor of that right now, 44% voting no. I don't know if, Jim, anything stands out in those congressional races to you, 4th, 5th, or 6th district. A lot of people watching those when it comes to control. The Republicans looking at those possibly as a chance to win.
Yeah, absolutely. They are probably not going to play a national role because East Coast races have already flipped things as we're looking at it. But they're going to be crucial to how big the majority is. And that becomes really important. Think of Lori Chavez de Remmer, if she does go on to win, she's going to be a first-year member of Congress, but she's going to be one of the class that flipped the place. The 1994 class, when they did that, it was a badge of honor. They stuck with it, and a lot of them went on to bigger and better things. Same with the Watergate class for Democrats in 1974. And so we'll see if that kind of stays with her as she moves ahead. I have a feeling it'll be more difficult this time, simply because Donald Trump is going to drown out all that kind of stuff. Donald Trump is really going to dominate things for the next couple of years.
I know you've been doing some math over there, so I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I want to look at some of these psilocybin issues going on here. In Clackamas County, yes, 58%, no, 42%, a temporarily psilocybin ban. Also temporary ban on psilocybin businesses in Estacada. The yes is there, 64%, the no's 36%. Let's see what's happening in Sandy. This would also ban it, 64% to 36%. Malala, the yes is 64%, the no's 36%. And Marion County, the yes is at 58 and the no's at 42. Let's see what the folks in Kaiser are saying about the psilocybin ban. They're saying yes as well, 65% to 35%. Cornelius, 58 to 42% there. Banks banned psilocybin-related businesses in that city, 66% to 34%. Sublimity banned psilocybin-related businesses in that city as well, 81 to 19. So all yeses on temporary bans of psilocybin. Jim, are you surprised at all by that?
No, I'm not. When we look at it, when you get away from kind of the bigger cities, and the bigger cities were all over the state, you had a lot of people who were really nervous. Psilocybins, boy, they look at it and they immediately become medical professionals and say, no, 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 it's a gateway drug. We don't want to do that. And that wins. It's a really simple message. It's a clear message. And so we'll have to wait and see what happens. I'd love to see what these votes are if the psilocybin industry gets kind of a foothold, becomes something that's accepted to treat, for instance, PTSD, those kinds of things. Then in 10 years, do we revisit it or not? Probably most of these places would stick with it, but it's an untried thing. And remember, the original ballot measure that we had said, if you put it on the ballot as a local area, you get to decide with 2 years from now, whether or not you want to keep it or not. And so a lot of people, they put it on there. A lot of places, though, didn't. Washington County looked at it, and the county commissioner said, you know what, we're not putting that on the ballot. We think it's a good thing, and there was no move to get it on the ballot. So it's a mixed bag, but as you'd expect, kind of bigger cities versus small, medium-sized places.
One we haven't checked out recently, Jim, is that Measure 114 requiring a permit for firearms limits magazine capacity. That has not moved since we looked at that, 51% to 49%. And I don't know if you can see, Jim, where those numbers are coming in at all, but certainly that matters, particularly when it comes to this issue.
Yeah, it does. And this became, we talk about rural urban so often in Oregon, and so often it's not really what's going on. This is. Gun owners, while people think, oh, it's people who live in cities and want to protect themselves from crime, gun owners tend to be hunters. And hunters are out in the away from the big cities, and they're the ones who are saying, hey, this limitation is going to be a problem for me. I don't support it. And then there are some people who are true Second Amendment people who stick with that. This shows an even split, and we see this with gun kinds of things in Oregon all the time, a pretty even split between the bigger urban areas and kind of the rest of the state. And you don't want to say rural because not many people live in the rural areas, but it's the smaller cities and towns. I bet if we were to look and say what percentage of people go hunting, we'd find that those places are the ones that are voting no on this. They basically don't want to have it.
I want to talk about Measure 113, Jim. You know this one. This would make legislative walkouts much harder in the state of Oregon. And that's yes, 68% to 32% no. And folks voting tonight, and there's a big check by that one right now, but folks voting tonight saying no, they want people to stay and do their jobs, right?
I think that simple message was what accomplished this. People said, if you're a legislator, we want you to stay there and work. Now, remember, you get 10 unexcused absences. That's a lot. As a teacher, that's a lot. But it basically puts some limits on that. And so will we see walkouts in the future?
Jim, we're going to take another break as we do another cut-in for ABC. So we're going to shut down here. You can watch all this happen, but I'll be on ABC here shortly.
From K2 News, this is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
This is a Your Voice, Your Vote update on the 2022 midterm elections. I'm Steve Dunn. As more counties report numbers, some races are getting much closer. We want to get right to the results now. Here's the latest in the race for governor. Look at this, 46% for Tina Kotek, 44% for Christine Drazen, 9% for Betsy Johnson. In the last hour, we heard from non-affiliated candidate Betsy Johnson. K2's Christina Giardinelli joins us live from Johnson's campaign event in St. Helens. Christina?
Yeah, earlier Johnson gave essentially a concession speech. The big message there, though, was that they're not disappointed in the results. I mean, of course, they had hoped for a win, but she said that this is, sending a message that Oregonians are ready for something that goes against those party lines, that goes against the current. That was her main message. She also did make a promise, and I want to read it to you real quick. She gave us a statement. But essentially saying that she wants to hold elected officials accountable. And then, of course, the evening is starting to slow down now with the band, people slowly starting to trickle out. But you can hear more about a Johnson statement by heading to K2.com. For now, live in St. Helens, Christina Giardinelli, K2 News.
All right, Christina, thank you for that. We want to go down to K2's Eric Mock. He's down in Silverton, the Republican candidate Christine Drazen's campaign. What's the latest down there, Eric?
Yeah, still got quite a party going on here. People are very encouraged by the close numbers we've seen so far. Like you just mentioned, 46% for Tina Kotek, 44% for Christine Drazen. Just a little bit ago, they had showed numbers that said 45% for Drazen and 45% for Kotek, and the crowd went wild. They were pretty ecstatic to hear that the race was so close still, and it's still very close. And so the Drazen supporters here, very energized, and they want to see a Drazen win. We talked to her campaign. They said they're still very hopeful for how the rest of this night could go, but they're still waiting on Clackamas County, and as we know, it could be a while before we get those results from that county. We're now reporting live in Silverton, Eric Mock, K2 News.
All right, keep us posted down there, Eric. Thank you very much. And K2's Genevieve Rayom is at the campaign event for Democratic candidate Tina Kotek. We heard from Genevieve at about 8:24 tonight. We've yet to hear from Kotek herself. We'll keep you updated on that. Now to the race for Portland City Commissioner position number 3 between Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty. You see the numbers there, 57% for Renee Gonzalez, 43% for Joanne Hardesty. K2's Megan Allison just arrived at Gonzalez's campaign event. You were at Hardesty's event earlier. What are you hearing down there?
Well, Steve, we were able to speak with Renee Gonzalez just in the last few minutes. He's circulating the crowd here, talking to people, smiling, and there is a lot of enthusiasm here. He says during the primary by 8 o'clock, they really had an idea of where the night was going, and it's the same feeling here tonight. He was touching on the same issues that we've heard about over the last few weeks, saying if he were to take on this role, what he sees as the top priorities are the homeless crisis, quality of living in Portland, as well as the challenges that come with crime. Now, before this, we were over at Hardesty's event as well, and she was also voicing optimism. She was saying that she put everything that she had into this race, and she was just going to enjoy tonight's celebration and see where the results carry moving forward. She says that she believes that Portlanders don't want to be complacent, that they still want change, and we were hearing that from Gonzalez as well. He was saying he believes that was a motivating factor for people who were putting in their ballots over the last few days. So we are continuing to follow things at this event and chat with Gonzalez. We'll make sure to keep you updated as we move forward here. We're live in Southwest Portland. Megan Allison, K2 News.
Megan, we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you for that. In Washington, U.S. Representative 3rd District, look at these numbers. Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez, the Democrat, leading Joe Kent 53% to 47%. You can follow along with K2's local election coverage right now by heading over to KATU.com. We're breaking down local returns, keeping track of all the big races important to you. I'll be back in another half hour with another update. We'll see you soon.
From K2 News, this is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
And welcome back to K2.com, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn. We're continuing our coverage of this huge election in the state of Oregon right now. I want to take you back to some of the big races we're following. And as we look at the governor's race right now, and Tina Kotek at 46%, Christine Drazen at 44%, Betsy Johnson at 9%. Portland City Commissioner, position number 3, Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty. That one stands at 57% for Gonzalez, 43% for Joanne Hardesty. Let's look at the 26-228. That changes city government structure in the city of Portland at 56% and 44% there. And we heard from Wright Gazaway saying those folks on the yeses are claiming victory at this point, but we'll follow that one. Oregon Measure 114 requires a permit for firearms, limits magazine capacity. That still stands at about a 2% gap there. U.S. Rep. Oregon House, 53% for Lori Chavez DeRemer, 47% for Jamie McLeod Skinner. In the 6th District, and this has been a tight one, certainly Mike Erickson and Andrea Salinas. Erickson trailing that one by 4 percentage points. U.S. Rep. 4th District, Val Hoyle and Alex Scarlato's there. 10-point lead at Val Hoyle. This one, and that one stood at tied for quite some time. U.S. Rep. 3rd District, Marie Glusenkamp Perez and Joe Kent. This is over in the state of Washington, 53% for Glusenkamp Perez and Joe Kent at 47%. U.S. Rep. 4th District, Dan Newhouse and Doug White. Newhouse with a big lead in that race tonight. U.S. Senator Patty Murray, the Democrat, Tiffany Smiley, the Republican, 57-43 on that one, U.S. Senator. Clark County Sheriff Ray Reynolds and John Horch. You see Horch with a sizable 20-point lead for Sheriff. Multnomah County Chair Sharon Mirren and Jessica Vega Peterson. We see Vega Peterson. It's still a tight race at about 4 points separating those two. Let's bring in Jim Moore once again. And Jim, you got a little bit of a break to kind of go through some of the math there. What are you seeing, first of all, on those numbers?
I'm looking at the Oregon legislature. Right now, it looks like it's a 16-14 split for the Democrats in the Oregon Senate. Okay. So they have a majority, but one race is a 50-50 race right now. So if it goes to the Republican, 15-15. If it stays with the Democrats, 16-14. So very, very, very close there. And then on the House, it looks like, I haven't done the total math here, but it looks like, yes, the supermajority, which they didn't have, is the majority is going to shrink, but it looks like the Democrats will hold on to that majority. I have about 9 more races to go through before I do the final math on that. But we have 3 or 4 50-50 races in the House as well. We do. I'm going to talk about, of course, the big one we've been following, one of the big ones, Chavez DeRemer and McLeod Skinner, and that's what we talked about earlier. You thought the Republicans could come away with tonight, and if we can bring those numbers again from the booth, at Lori Chavez DeRemer at 53%, Jamie McLeod Skinner at 47%. Jim, what are you thinking here? I mean, what's the McLeod Skinner folks? What are they hoping for at this point? Well, they're hoping there are a lot more votes in Multnomah County. Remember, as we started out, she was ahead 73% or something like that. That's all from Multnomah County. So she's hoping there's a lot more votes there. And we know there are going to be tens of thousands of votes coming out of there. But there will also be tens of thousands of votes coming from the other parts of the district. So once again, did the people who voted today, are they fundamentally different than the people who voted in the past couple of weeks? Nationwide, people are looking at this. This is a big thing in Georgia, for instance, with the Senate races and things like that. As I want to point out, we've talked about it before, Democrats were voting below where they normally vote. Right. So if those are Democrats that are coming in from today's ballots, then this could narrow, and there's still a chance for the Democrat to win. But if they don't, if that was kind of a normal spread of exactly what we've seen, it'll just confirm these numbers, and Lori Chavez DeRemer will join our other Republican, and we'll have 4 Democrats and 2 Republicans in our House. Let's look at 6th District now. This is Andrea Salinas and Mike Erickson. And as we bring up those numbers, Jim, and last I saw, it still stands at 4 points separating the two. These two went at it in this campaign. This was a knockdown, drag-out campaign for these two. And as you look at these numbers here, what does Erickson have to do? What does he have to hope comes in tonight? Well, he's got the same kind of issue, but for him, the big Democratic area is Washington County. Southern Washington County is in this. And Washington County has become very, very Democratic. He's doing well in the other parts of the district, but is it enough to overcome those Washington County votes? Marion County is the heart of the district. Marion County is the key. Marion County, we'll see how, once again, are the later voters going to be a little bit more Democratic, or are they going to stick with their leaning Republican that we've seen right now? But usually on election night, these patterns hold, and this becomes the result when we look at it as it goes down the road. So right now, there's a lot of hope on the people who are on the wrong side of these, and a lot of basically crossing fingers and doing whatever you have to do, rubbing every rabbit foot you can find for the people who are ahead.
Make it to
no
the finish
certainty.
line.
No certainty yet.
Yeah, no question. Well, look at some races of interest right now. Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries Commissioner Christina Stevenson and Sherry Helt were battling it out on this one. We see Stevenson with a pretty solid lead there, 61% in fact. Let's look at Secretary of State in the state of Washington here, Steve Hobbs, with a 3-point lead over Julie Anderson now. Clackamas County Clerk Catherine McMullen and Sherry Hall. Look at this, Jim. As we look at this, and we see Sherry Hall with 34% and Catherine McMullen at 66%. And as we can look at this race, and Sherry Hall certainly involved in some controversy there in Clackamas County, Jim. And these numbers surprise you at all?
They do, because Sherry Hall has been getting in trouble for things for a long time. And the voters have said, great, we want you back in. Now it appears by a 2-to-1 margin in Clackamas County, they're saying, you know, it was a step too far. Remember, the big thing was in the primary, where all of a sudden the ballots didn't have the right bars on them. We couldn't read them. There was a lot of, do we have enough staff? All these kinds of things. And then just yesterday, it was announced, you know, unlike every other county, they're going to give their ballots tonight, and they're not going to do it again for 22 hours. And people, if you were voting at the last minute, you might have looked at it and said, really? Really? Every other county can do that. So one of the groups that I talked to a lot of groups, Republicans, Democrats. I'm talking to the Farm Bureau on Friday night, good bunch of people. But the Democratic women in that county are ecstatic right now, because they wanted to get her out for a long, long time, and it looks like somebody has finally been able to do that.
Clackamas County Commissioner, position number 2, Libra Ford, Paul Savas here. We see Savas with 57% to Libra Ford's 43%. Clackamas County Commissioner, position number 5, Sonia Fisher and Ben West. There you go. That's one of those, we've seen a lot of 50-50s tonight. That is for sure in a lot of races. Oregon City Mayor Denise McGriff and Dan Burge. 68% to 32% for Burge. Denise McGriff holding a solid lead on that one. Sandy Mayor Stan Pulliam and Kathleen Walker. Stan Pulliam with a 4-point lead on that one. Do you want to comment on that at all, Jim, before we move on, the Sandy Mayor?
Yeah, remember Stan Pulliam was one of the people who's running for governor. He's running on a firm, our schools are in trouble, we shouldn't have shut things down for COVID, Kate Brown was wrong to make us wear masks, all those kinds of things. Stan Pulliam, you know, a lot of people in Sandy are saying, you know, you're not the right person, but at this point he's ahead, and he looks like he might be on his way to another term.
Yeah, total of 2,000 votes there. Gladstone Mayor Michael Milch, Tammy Stemple, and Steve Johnson all involved in that one, but that looks like a Milch with a 5-point lead there. Milwaukee Mayor Lisa Beatty and Kathy Hizzy, 54 to 46%, Beatty with the lead. Tiger Mayor John Goodhouse, Heidi Lueb, and Nick Hess all involved in that race. And we see 53% to 29% over Goodhouse now. Let's go back out to Genevieve Rayom, who's been covering the Democrats there tonight, and in particular just waiting for Tina Kotek to come out and say something. Has that happened yet, Genevieve?
No, Steve, we still have not seen or heard from Tina Kotek. I did send a text message to her campaign, and I asked when we're going to get an update, and they said they still don't have an ETA as to when she's going to come out. They are waiting on more returns. It is still a very close race, but we can see that Tina Kotek has about a 2% lead at this point, but it sounds like she's just standing by, waiting for the right moment to come out, waiting until more of those ballots are counted, until she is ready to address this crowd. But I can tell you the energy in this room has certainly changed over the last few hours. A lot of the Democrats are feeling very optimistic. They've won a few of those really key races that we've already called. They're excited. They're celebrating some of the measures that have passed. But of course, everyone is waiting on Tina Kotek. She is the person that most of these people are here to see. Most of them are eager to hear from, but she is standing by, I assume, somewhere close, but has not yet spoken. So we'll keep an eye out for her. And of course, once we see her, once we hear more from her campaign, we'll be sure to let you know. Steve?
Yes, absolutely let us know. Genevieve, thank you for that. And we want to see if Christine Drazen has come out in Silverton down there at the Oregon Garden. And for that, we go to Eric Mock. Eric, what's happening where you are?
Yeah, still no sign of Drazen, but the crowd here very excited. It just had a few people run up to me and say how excited they were actually about the campaign. You know, they've talked about how they think they can make history tonight. They really do. With how close the numbers are, 44% to Tina Kotek's 46%. They really believe Christine Drazen can be the one to end the drought of Republican governors in Oregon. That's more than 40 years since we've had a Republican governor here in the state. And these people here tonight, you can tell they really believe it can happen. They are energized, excited. Every time those close numbers pop up on screen, they give a big cheer, a big shout. So, you know, again, we're just waiting for her to come out and address the crowd, but we're told that could be pretty late because they want to monitor those results and they don't want to come out prematurely, they're saying, but they don't want to draw any conclusions for that. So, and yeah, in fact, we got some pretty excited people here, you know, for Christine Drazen. They say, oh yeah, they got the signs and everything. They're ready to go here. And they got to see, that's the kind of energy we've been having. This is the kind of energy we've been having all night, guys, right here. So, but we'll continue to, you know, bring you guys this race and any updates out here right now. Again, they're very excited for it. We're very excited to see what's going to happen in this very tight race. But as soon as that happens, we'll bring it out to you guys. Now reporting live in Silverton, Eric Mock, K2 News.
Party continues down in Silverton. Eric, we'll talk to you very soon. And we'll bring in Jim Moore once again. Oh, we're going to Christina. Hold on, Jim, don't go away, all right? Because I have a question for you. We come back. Christina Giardinelli at the Betsy Johnson camp. And I know we heard from Betsy earlier. What's the latest where you are now, Christina?
Yeah, this is certainly not looking like it's going to be a late night rager here. They are shutting things down here. Most people have already left. You can still hear the band going on, but Johnson already gave her concession speech. And the word here is that the game for her is over. But it was not a disappointing result according to that concession speech she gave. You know, she said, we made great strides for a third-party campaign. Of course, we haven't seen these types of strides in a third-party governor's campaign since the 90s. So again, this is a significant race for her. She says it's going to send out a message that, you know, Oregonians are ripe for a party that is down the middle, for, not playing party politics, essentially. So that is what we heard from Johnson tonight. And we'll keep you updated on results as we go through the night at K2.com. For now, live at St. Helens, Christina Giardinelli, K2 News.
All right, Christina, thank you very much. Let's look at the Portland City Commissioner position number 3 race between Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty. Those numbers have not changed over the last hour or so. 57% to Joanne Hardesty's 43%. I want to go right out to Megan Allison now, who's been covering both candidates tonight. And she's been at the Renee Gonzalez camp for the last 20 minutes or so. What are you hearing down there right now, Megan?
Well, Steve, like you said, since the results have not really changed and Gonzalez has held that lead, it seems like this party is kind of winding down with optimism. A lot of people giving Gonzalez a high five as they're walking out the door, telling him great job. Gonzalez says he will be tracking the results through 10 p.m., but he is feeling good at this point. I did get the chance to speak with him just in the last few minutes, and he was saying he believes that Portlanders are ready to see some change. When I asked him what changes he wants to see, he mentioned things like gun violence, concerns with crime, the homeless crisis in this area, and just general livability in Portland. He says that he is eager to work with other current sitting members of the city council. He had mentioned the mayor's proposal, which was on the unsanctioned ban on the ban on unsanctioned camping, saying that he supports that and that more shelter space is needed. Now, before this, we were over at Hardesty's event as well. She was voicing some optimism too. Hardesty was saying that, you know, she put everything that she had into this race, and that no matter where this election night goes, that she still is going to be involved in trying to make Portland a better place. And she feels optimistic that there could still be a way for her to do that. So we're going to continue to follow these events tonight. But like I said, things are slowing down just with that tone of optimism here in Southwest Portland. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
All right. Thank you, Megan, for that. I want to go over some of the big races again and just give you the very latest numbers that we have as they come to us. Let's start out with the governor's race. That one, a little bit tighter than last time we looked at this one. 1 point now separating Christine Drazen and Tina Kotek. 46% for Kotek, 45% for Drazen. Of course, Betsy Johnson at 9%. Portland City Commissioner position number 3. Again, that number has not moved. 57% for Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty, the incumbent, at 43%. Portland changes their city government structure. 56% to 44% the yeses taking that one at this point. Measure 114 requiring a permit for firearms and limiting magazine capacity, and 51% to 49. Again, that's a number has not moved over the last 45 minutes or so. U.S. Rep 5th District, Lori Chavez DeRemer, the Republican, Jamie McLeod Skinner, the Democrat. Again, 6 points separating those two. In the 6th District, Andrea Salinas and Mike Erickson there. Okay, it's a little bit tighter than now. These are brand new numbers in at 48% for Erickson, 50% for Salinas. And I see Jim just scurrying to find out where those numbers are coming from. We'll get to him in a moment. U.S. Rep 4th District, Val Hoyle and Alex Scarlato, still 10 points separating those two right now. U.S. Representative 3rd District, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez and Joe Kent, still 6 points separating those two, which would be an absolute shocker in the country. U.S. Rep 4th District, Dan Newhouse and Doug White, and Newhouse with a big lead on White at this point. U.S. Senator Patty Murray, the incumbent, over Tiffany Smiley. That one is still a big lead for Patty Murray. Clark County Sheriff Ray Reynolds and John Horch. We see Horch with a 20-point lead there. That one has not changed. Multnomah County Chair Sharon Mirren and Jessica Vega Peterson. As we see those numbers, we see still about 4 points separating those two. Okay, now we can bring in my good friend and colleague Jim Moore, because I see you scurrying to find some recent numbers. I want to ask you a quick question about the Drazen. As they see those numbers come in, 1 point separating them right now, are they feeling optimistic? They feeling what's happening here? Because where are you seeing these numbers are coming in from?
Yeah, so they are feeling optimistic right now. In about 15 minutes, they're going to feel less optimistic, because Multnomah County is supposed to give us a new run of numbers, heavily Democratic. Now remember, there's still, it looks to me, about 400,000 votes in the entire state that are still out there. 10 o'clock, we'll begin to see those come in a big way, except for Clackamas County. So that'll really kind of solidify what's going on. Another word of caution for the Republicans. In 2010, Chris Dudley at this point was ahead, and was ahead until noon, 2 o'clock the next day. But everybody had counted everything except Multnomah County was slow, and those numbers inexorably came in, and John Kitzhaber won, but did not take the lead until 12, 14, 16 hours after the polls closed. So right now, with Drazen behind, if that same pattern holds, it just gets bigger for Tina Kotek. So we're going to be watching all of this really carefully. It's not 2010 anymore. Multnomah County counts things differently, but we've seen this happen before. So we're not calling it. AP's not calling it. Everybody's looking and saying, wow, we thought it would be close, and it is close. We'll see how it plays out. But if you're a Republican, you're cautiously optimistic. If you're a Democratic, you're nervously optimistic.
Well, you can see why they haven't come out to talk yet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Why would you?
What are you going to say?
Yeah,
right?
and most what you do is you come out at 11 o'clock and say it's late. Everybody should go home. We'll let you know at 2 o'clock when they update, and I'll talk to you tomorrow at 8.
And keep the party going.
Exactly.
Red Gasway is going to keep it going for us here on the desk, because you were following those House races, right?
Let's talk about that 5th District, Jim. You saw Lori Chavez DeRemer expand that lead just a little bit there. What do you think Jamie McLeod Skinner needs to make up that difference, or does DeRemer look like she could even expand there?
Well, we need to wait. The Multnomah County at 10 o'clock is going to be really crucial to figure out, so what is Jamie McLeod Skinner's chances of actually doing this? If she retakes the lead, then we've got a real race. If she does not retake the lead, even with those heavily Democratic votes coming in there, then Lori Chavez DeRemer basically has this sewn up.
What about the 6th? We saw a little tightening there with those new numbers between Republican Mike Erickson and Democrat Andrea Salinas.
Yeah.
What are you seeing with the numbers coming in there?
Same thing there. We're waiting, but where has Salinas done well? She's done well in the big population center of Washington County, where she's ahead. Erickson is ahead, but only by about 3 percentage points in Marion County. And so it looks like Washington County, which is the second biggest county in the district, is going to be the pivot around which she goes and wins. Now, Erickson is not doing as well as he ought to be doing in places where Republicans have done well before. So he's ahead, but he's not at the 60% level we would expect. He's at the 52, 53% in some of these counties.
The one race I want to ask you about, Jim, is just flooring me at this point anyways, the Gluesenkamp Perez and Joe Kent as we wait for Joe English to pop up so we can go to him over there. Look at these numbers at 53% to 47%. There is no way a month and a half ago that anyone would have predicted this, correct?
No, there isn't. But Joe Kent has been very specific to his supporters. Do not turn in your ballots until the last minute, because if you do, the people who will work in the county clerk's office will alter your ballot. So if there's a whole bunch of Kent ballots that came in today, we're going to have to see if they're going to count them tonight. And from the primary, we know sometimes they don't. And then see what happens with people's ballots that come in because of the postmark thing in the next couple of days. So this is, it's very, very fluid still at this point. It is not a lock for the Democrat at all.
I would imagine Jamie Herrera Butler's probably sitting there watching this saying, what in the world happened here?
Oh, yeah. No, she's, remember, when we were talking on the primary, we were saying, wow, this looks like a lock for two Republicans to go through and face off against each other. And there were three Republicans who were in there, and they basically all equaled each other. And Marie Glueson-Perez, the Democrat, who we didn't give a chance, waltzed right in. But only with about a third of the vote. It wasn't overwhelming.
Right.
And now when we look at it, it looks like enough of the Republicans who voted for Jamie Herrera Butler said, we can't support Kent. We're going to have to vote for the Democrat. Now, Kent, remember, has the secret weapon, late ballots.
Yep.
Is it enough, though? That's a pretty big lead right there.
Even at this point, you know, the national folks are going, wait a minute, who's this Glueson-Perez?
Exactly.
Where did she come from?
Exactly.
Oh, my
She'll go to Washington and she'll, you know, as a sideline, open up a nice car shop there and, you know, help people with their automobile.
Unbelievable. Hey, can we real quick, I know we're waiting for Joe. Well, there's Joe right now. Is he ready to go up there? I see him up in the monitor. Is he all set? Okay, hang on, folks, because Joe English is over in Southwest Washington covering these folks, the Glueson-Camp Joe Kent race. Let's go to Joe English now. Joe, I've been missing you, buddy. What's happening over there?
Oh, we made our way up into North Clark County at the event center, the watch party for Joe Kent, and we can't get in. They won't allow us in. They said we're not on the list, so we're waiting outside in the cold for him to come out. We were told he will be coming out to make a statement. Don't know what he's going to say. I want to ask him about if he expects the same thing to happen as happened in the primary, where he kind of snuck up from behind of Jamie Herrera Butler and ended up winning. So that's what I had asked Marie Glueson-Perez as well, if that same kind of thing could happen. When we talked to her, here's what she had to say.
But here's what we do know, that our country and the future of our democracy is something that is worth fighting for. Democracy is worth fighting for. It's worth fighting for today, tomorrow, next week, next year. Democracy is worth fighting for. And that's what patriotism is about.
Well, they might have the same but a different version of that out here at Joe Kent's watch party. That was at the Vancouver Hilton, where the Democrats from Clark County had gathered. They were feeling pretty good about the results so far. Still a pretty close race. Now, I've been told that by election officials that they've stopped counting for today, and they haven't counted today's ballots. Could be tens of thousands, probably 50, 60, 70,000 ballots that need to be counted again. And Marie Glueson-Perez says she's not expecting any final results for a day, maybe two, maybe even three. In Clark County, Joe English, K2 News.
All right, Joe, let us know if you do get in. Okay, keep us posted on that. What do you make? Still a possibility, obviously, for Joe Kent to win this thing.
Absolutely
6-point spread right now, but a lot of those numbers could come in and turn the thing for him.
Right, so right now there's about a 20,000 vote lead. And if you think that there might be 40 or 50,000 out, they have to break really heavily for Joe Kent in order for him to win. But he's also remembering the primary where he was in third place, but he was only in third place by a few thousand votes, not 20,000 votes when he did that. So we all have to wait, and you know they shut down, and so we won't know tonight, and we'll figure it out in the morning or you know down in the week. But it's fascinating. You know, I compared Joe Kent to 1994. There was another outsider named Linda Smith. She ran in the primary. The Republican for this 3rd congressional district kind of disappeared. Later, he was finding himself, as we discovered. She won as a write-in candidate, and then she was part of the Republican Revolution. She was elected into Congress. Very different. She was a revolutionary. She was about as conservative as Kent, but she basically said, media, come in. Let's play this game. I need you to help me get out to my constituents. Joe Kent is shutting himself off. He cannot go out and meet 500,000 people and talk to them. He's got to use the media. And what he's doing right now is he's shutting himself off, and he's saying, if I win, I'm going to be a representative who's going to do what I want to do. Now, the voters may want that, and we voted for people like that in the past. But it's a very different thing. It's not a civic duty to go there and represent people. It's I'm there, in effect, to carry out my agenda. Once again, lots of people do this, but we just haven't seen it in this part of the country for a long time.
We're going to take another break, and then we're going to be doing an update for ABC. And so you folks who are watching us on KATU.com, just hang in there, and we'll be back shortly.
From K2 News, this is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
This is a Your Voice, Your Vote update on the 2022 midterm elections. I'm Steve Dunn. We want to get straight to the latest results in the race for Oregon governor. It continues to be neck and neck between Democrat Tina Kotek and Republican Christine Drazan. Look at the numbers there, 46 to 45 between those two. Betsy Johnson at 9%. The race for Multnomah County Chair right now, Sharon Mirren versus Jessica Vega Peterson now at 52% to 48%. Portland City Commissioner position number 3, Renee Gonzalez versus Joanne Hardesty. We see 57% for Renee Gonzalez, Hardesty at 43% tonight. Portland Charter Measure 26228 changes city government structure. This has been talked about a lot over the last couple of months. We see the yeses at 56%, the noes at 44%. The yes is now claiming victory tonight. In fact, we'll see how that turns out. Oregon Ballot Measure 114 requiring permits for firearms limits magazine capacity. We see a 2-point lead at this point. The yes is at 51%, the no's at 49%. That gap much smaller than it was just an hour ago. Oregon Ballot Measure 113, absent legislators can't run in the next election. 68%, there's a check mark next to that. 68% yeses, the no's at 32%, so that is projected to win there. Temporary ban on psilocybin businesses in unincorporated areas in Clackamas County. We see that as a yes at 58% to 42%. You can follow along with K2's local election coverage right now by heading over to KATU.com. We're breaking down local returns and keeping track of the big local races that are important to you. I'll be back in a half hour with another Your Voice, Your Vote update. Still lots happening out there. We've got you covered. I promise you that. We'll see you soon.
From K2 News, this is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
Welcome back to our coverage tonight. I'm joined by my colleague here, analyst Jim Moore, and my other colleague, Wright Gazaway. Thank you guys for being here tonight. We're waiting for the latest dump from Multnomah County of ballots tonight, and that will be big, certainly for a lot of these candidates watching for those numbers to come in. And Jim Moore, as we look at this and we wait for these ballots to come in, who will be most affected by this when they do come in?
Jamie McLeod Skinner, number one. She's gone behind. She was initially ahead, so Multnomah County is crucial for her. So that's the first one. A second one, clearly the governor's race. You know, just nip and tuck. You know, if we're looking at it, the first bunch of numbers had Drazen at about 21%. To win a Republican traditionally needs to be kind of 30%. So does she get more percentage-wise in the votes as they come in? That'll be a big thing. Or it'll basically say Tina Kotek may not have this wrapped up, but she can go to sleep feeling a little more comfortable and wake up and say, so what's going on tomorrow?
So you, Jim Moore, can watch these numbers come in from Multnomah County and perhaps say, boy, this is over for so-and-so, or getting awfully close.
Getting awfully close. You know, none of this is close enough and final enough to call a race at this point. But it looks like what this does is, does it confirm the patterns that we had, or does it change the patterns that we had? If it confirms them, it looks good for Tina Kotek. If it confirms them, it may mean that there's a much closer race going on in that 5th congressional district.
Okay, Wright Gazaway, I want to bring you in because we talked about this changing Oregon structure of government that appears to be passing in a fairly big way after several attempts over the years. And what are you hearing from folks over there?
The people in the Yes campaign are claiming victory. That's the preliminary result earlier, 56% in favor. We'll get us another dump here at about 10 o'clock from Multnomah County. But the people in favor of these changes clearly feel like they have the support necessary. They've already claimed victory. The city administrator is now talking about next steps, because one of the parts of this proposal is setting up a district-based city council. So the city will now have to create these geographic districts, which is a very laborious process, have to involve the public through a lot of those steps. 4 districts in Portland. That's not an easy task, is what current city administrator Michael Jordan was saying earlier. It's not simple doing that. So they're trying to figure out what's next if this does pass. Of course, preliminary here, but people are certainly feeling like, what, the 9th or 10th or however many tries it's been, it's finally going to pass, and Portland's going to change its form of government.
And you covered this at great length for quite some time. The mayor doesn't want this, right? He doesn't want this.
He seems really worried about certain parts of this proposal as far as what kind of power the mayor has, the way people are elected. There are certainly a lot of questions about the ranked choice voting format, the type of ranked choice voting that will be used with these multi-member districts. But a lot of that will be ironed out, certainly.
And folks, you know, ladies, Jim, you mentioned it. People just want some change, don't they?
They do want some change, and I'm convinced that's why this is ahead. Once again, we'll see if it confirms, but people are just frustrated. But remember, and you know, you and I have talked about this before, the same problems are happening in all the big cities up and down the West Coast. It's clearly not our form of government that's the problem, but it's what's on the ballot, and it's the opportunity, and people have said, let's do this.
Especially when you talk to people involved in city government, what we found, certainly before this proposal was coming into focus, is that no one was in favor of keeping the current system. It really wasn't until this specific proposal came out that some of the other people said, well, let's do something different. But no one, we haven't found anyone who actually wants to keep things the way it is. Even the people who are opposed to this say, let's do something a little simpler next year. So they don't really even want to keep it the way it is either.
And we're, of course, watching these numbers. As soon as they come in from Multnomah County, the latest ballot dump from them, we will pass it right along to you. We expect that to happen any minute now. Let's look at some of these state measures now and bring those up on the screen and see how these are doing. Measure 111 makes health care a fundamental right. The first state in the country to do that. 51% no. The yes is at 49%. I want to stop it right there for a minute. Jim Moore, it's a little stunning, isn't it?
It's a little stunning, but it was a 50-50 when we saw the first numbers coming in. So clearly, people have looked at this and said, you know, there's a lot to think about here. It's safest to do no. Big names that were against this, people who want, for instance, a single-payer system. One of the biggest advocates said, don't vote for this because the unintended consequences will get in the way of single-payer. Other big advocates for healthcare have said, yes, do this. Others have said no. So even among the experts, split. And it looks like the people of Oregon have said, you know, split as well.
Measure 112 removes slavery as punishment for crime. Let's see how that's doing. 54% yeses, the noes at 46%. And I think you and I talked about this earlier. We're surprised that there are so many noes on that, Jim.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there was only one argument in the voters pamphlet that was against this, and that was from the Oregon sheriffs. And the Oregon sheriffs said, hey, it'll make it harder for us to punish people where we have them work for very little money. The slavery part, they said, we're not for slavery, but this is what we want to do. So clearly that's a powerful argument. It got a lot of people to say, oh yeah, wait, you know, we get cheap labor for people picking up litter by the side of the road, all those kinds of things. We don't want to get in the way of that. But it does, because there are 6 states that are voting on very similar things. I don't know what the other states have done, but the initial ones said that looked like they were getting rid of slavery in much bigger numbers than we are. I have a feeling this is going to play into Oregon as a racist place. I really do.
Yeah, and voters also saying they don't, they want their legislators to show up to work. Measure 113, absent legislators can't run in the next election. They get, what, 10 unexcused absences? Is that the deal, Jim?
10 unexcused absences, and there's a lot of holes in that. For instance, you know, if there's only 9 sessions left, leave. But it clearly, this is passing all over the state, and we thought it would be really split along party lines. It looks like it's bipartisan. People want their legislators to show up to work.
You mentioned that's a lot of unexcused absences, particularly coming from a professor like you.
I got to tell you, I mean, they meet basically from February until June. And that's basically a semester. If someone misses 10 in my class, at 5, we're talking about dropping the class. And so it's just fascinating to watch.
You're going to hear from Mr. Moore, let me tell you that much.
Yeah.
Measure 114 requires permit for firearms, limits magazine capacity. That is still very, very close. 51% yeses, the 49% no. What could change that over, Jim, do you think, to the noes?
Once again, Multnomah County coming in, so I would expect actually the yes to get a little bit more when Multnomah County reports. But then there's the other parts. Clackamas County is I didn't look at the thing, but Clackamas County traditionally has been against gun measures. And so Clackamas County, when it reports tomorrow, could also tinker with that number. But at this point, it looks like too early to call, but it looks like this thing's going to pass.
Clackamas County is really interesting, isn't it, when it comes to these elections?
It really is. It's the techniques that are going on, and we saw the county clerk is being defeated 2-1 at this point. But it's also, Clackamas County is a crucial swing set of votes. Used to be Washington County, but Washington County's become very Democratic. But now Clackamas County and Marion County are really the pivotal counties in the entire state.
Let's go to Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries Commissioner Christina Stevenson against Sherry Helt, and we see it right there. Christina Stevenson, 61% to Sherry Helt at 39%. Washington Secretary of State Steve Hobbs versus Julie Anderson there, about 3 points separating those two. Clackamas County Clerk, let's look at the numbers there. You talked about this one. This is Catherine McMullen and Sherry Hall, the incumbent there, and absolutely she is going down big, as a lot of folks say, you know, we're tired of what's been happening in the Clackamas County elections. Clackamas County Commissioner position 2, Libra Ford and Paul Savas, and Savas with a lead on Ford at this point. Clackamas County Commissioner position 5, Sonia Fisher and Ben West, and that one is also a 50-50 tie at this point. Oregon City Mayor Denise McGriff and Dan Burge, 68-32 in favor of McGriff. Sandy Mayor Stan Pulliam, we certainly know him, running for governor. Kathleen Walker, 52% for Pulliam and 48% for Walker. Let's move to Gladstone Mayor Michael Milch. With a lead over Tammy Stemple. Well, actually, it's about 5 points now, so that one's getting closer. Milwaukee Mayor Lisa Beatty and Kathy Heisey, 54% for Lisa Beatty over Heisey's 46%. Tigard Mayor, this is Heidi Lube and John Goodhouse. Goodhouse is definitely down 29% to 53% for Lubes at this point. Let's talk to Jim again as we bring the... I always love to talk to you after I see some numbers, because I see you kind of looking, standing back, saying, what in the world's going on? What surprises you there? Anything stands out?
No, the main thing that stands out to me is Clackamas County is like the most interesting political county in the state.
Yeah.
Its Board of Commissioners is probably the most partisan in the state. We're seeing a mix of Republican, conservatives and liberals in there. And this election, it's really, really close. The county is so evenly split. Just as comparison, this was Washington County 20 years ago. voted for legislators who were more Republican, and now it is as Democratic as Multnomah County was in 2000. It has become a hotbed of just strong Democratic support. And I'm seeing Clackamas County go through that process. It used to be Republican, Republican, Republican. Now we're in the mixed zone. Fascinating to watch it play itself out. And we've got a really close race there for the Oregon legislature going on as well, one of those 50-50 races. But it looks like it is switching, so that I would bet 4 years from now, 6 years from now, it's much more Democratic as change happens. Just, it's amazing to watch. We've seen the same thing in the Bend area, Deschutes County go through the same process.
Let's go look at the numbers again for Oregon governor. 46 to 45. That's still holding for Tina Kotek, that 1 point. And again, we're waiting for these numbers to come in for Multnomah County. We expected them at 10 o'clock. Any moment now, we should get that ballot dump. And we understand that Christine Drazen is going to speak at some point, and also Kotek is going to speak in the next hour. So we're waiting to hear from them, and as you can well imagine, they're probably sitting back, they're waiting for these numbers to change. And if you're sitting there with 46 to 45, I mean, what can you really say other than just kind of hang in there, I guess. Portland City Commissioner position number 3, Renee Gonzalez, Joanne Hardesty. That really has not moved, that number at all. Wait,
change.
Jim's got numbers.
Change is happening.
Okay.
What do you have? What do we got here? Multnomah County. Oh, no, it just changed. Sorry. Whatever it is, the Secretary of State pushed a button. It wasn't the change I thought it was going to be.
Don't ever do that to me again.
It's coming.
It's like, oh, man, go.
You got to excite. He told me earlier this is like his New Year's Eve, election night.
Yeah.
So this guy gets excited, so I don't blame him at all, especially when you see new numbers coming in. Let's move on to the Portland. This is a structure of government, and this 56 to 44, this is passing in a big way and allows ranked choice of voting as well. Measure 114 requiring a permit for firearms, limiting magazine capacity, 2-point lead on the yeses on that one. We expect that to change perhaps when Multnomah County dumps again. U.S. Rep 5th District Lori Chavez to Reamer, still 6-point lead over Jamie McLeod Skinner. And then in the 6th District, that one had tightened up a bit. Let's see if that's still okay. Yeah, they did. Mike Erickson at 2%. Yeah, go ahead. Do you want to say something, right?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier we're watching this because you said it's very contentious, and it has been. She was running ads about Mike Erickson that really got under his skin. He actually sent a letter to her and said, if I lose this race, he threatened to sue her and cited a state law regarding that campaign ad. You look at that result right now, preliminary, but a race that close, you got to wonder what he's thinking as he sees just how narrow that margin is.
Yeah, absolutely. So that state law was not only you just shouldn't do this, but that state law said if you do something like this, your election is invalid. So that's what he threatened her with. Now, there was a long time ago, 30 years ago, there was a guy who lived in the 1st Congressional District, Bill Witt. You may remember
Bill Witt. Yep.
He used lawsuits as his campaign strategy. And he sued all over the place. He came within 301 votes in 1994 of going to Washington, D.C. He lost. Filed lawsuits all over the place. Here's what happened to them. About 2 weeks after the election, a judge looked at him and said, nobody has any standing anymore. The lawsuit's gone. But you can see it tightens it up. And there's no love lost between these two.
No.
Mike Erickson has a history of doing things to try to get elected and never succeeding, coming close several times. This is one of those really close times. We'll have to see what happens, but right now
it's tight.
But it looks like it's going towards Salinas right now.
And one that is not tight is the 4th District. We talked about Val Hoyle, the Democrat, Alex Carlatos. That was tight at one point, but that's about 9 points now. But for quite some length of time, those two were tied. Washington Representative 3rd District Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez and Joe Kent still sitting at 6 points separating those two. And again, how many times could we say that would be a stunner in the country? U.S. Rep 3rd District, we talked about that. This is in Washington. We have Dan Newhouse and Doug White, and 69% for Newhouse and 31% for Doug White. And also U.S. Senator in Washington, Patty Murray and Tiffany Smiley, and Murray at 57% and 43% for Tiffany Smiley. We just received some new numbers, I'm told, in the governor's race, and I'm wondering if this is from Multnomah County we talked about, but let's see what we have here as we bring those up. 46 to 45, which we had a 1 point difference earlier, so I'm not exactly sure if these are added numbers or not. Jim, what are you seeing over there?
It's narrowing just a tiny bit. Tina Kotek was up by about 18,000 votes. She's now up by about 14,000 votes, 13,500. So narrowing a little tiny bit, but it doesn't look like Multnomah County has given its dump of votes.
Still not Multnomah County, so you got to be feeling pretty good if you're Tina Kotek at this point.
Well, I wouldn't feel pretty good, but I'd feel okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, you know, absolutely, whatever it takes to kind of make you feel a little bit better anyway. Let's move on to Portland City Commissioner position number 3. This is Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty. And again, 57% for Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty at 43%. And we see these numbers drop. Those will no doubt change. Let's go on to Washington Senator now, Patty Murray and Tiffany Smiley again, and they haven't moved, but there's a projection on Patty Murray. You see the check mark on the box there. So Patty Murray, and this was something a lot of people talked about as we got about a week or two up. People thought, geez, with Patty Murray, is it possible she could lose this race? But apparently that's not going to happen, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's 30 years ago was the year of the woman. That's when she got elected. She was the mom in tennis shoes. And here she is 30 years later going into, that's a lot of years in the U.S. Senate, and comfortably. Yeah, comfortably.
Associated Press, in fact, saying she is the winner tonight. Clark County Sheriff Ray Reynolds and John Horch, still 20 points separating those two, Horch and Reynolds. And it looks like John Horch will hold on to that lead. Multnomah County Chair Sharon Mirren and Jessica Vega Peterson, 52 to 48. That number has not moved either, and these two have been commissioners since 2016, both of them. Can we bring up the governor's race one more time? I want to talk about that to Jim as we bring those numbers up here. And apparently they've moved again, Jim. What do you see here? I'm hearing from the booth that those numbers have moved again. 564, 699 for Kotek. Drazen at 555, 188.
So we're down to 9,000 votes. So gone from 14,000 down to 9,000. So tightening up. Once again, still waiting for Multnomah County to come in. We've been through this before. It tightens up, and sometimes even the Republican may take the lead or have the lead, but there's just such a huge number of votes in Multnomah County and now Washington County that the next round from those two heavily Democratic and very populous counties tends to overwhelm it. But we go back and forth until we get all the numbers to come in. And so that's what it feels. And remember, it's not truly back and forth. It's not like people are saying, oh, they're ahead, oh, they're behind. The votes have all been cast. But it just takes a long time to count them, to go through the system. Think about it, probably about 25–30% of them came in today. They haven't even gotten to those yet. They're getting through the stuff that has come in as of this morning. It's a lot of ballots. You put them through the machines, do all that stuff. And then they're going to get another 400,000 or 500,000 they've got to do. That's going to be, maybe they'll start tonight, or maybe they'll start doing it tomorrow. It's just a lot of stuff that has to go through the machines.
But they'll go to bed tonight not knowing who's the governor, right, at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. There's apparently supposed to be a 2 o'clock update from Multnomah County. We'll find out in the morning.
Earlier, you talked about that 10% for Betsy Johnson, whether that was where she would play a spoiler. What do you make of the 9% for her? What kind of role do you think that played in this race?
I think that it hurt Tina Kotek, but a little bit. But look at this. Remember, the Republicans have lost by single digits 9 out of the 10 times since 1986. And looking at this, right now, it's basically a 1% lead. The narrowest we saw was a 1.5% lead, that 2010 election, and we're in that ballpark.
New numbers, Jim. Here we go. Just came in.
There we go.
Look at that.
Hot diggity. This is great. So we're narrowing down. That looks like 8,000 from where I'm sitting here.
So Tina Kotek got about 4,000 votes in this batch.
Yeah.
Compared to last time.
Yeah.
Well, 45 to 45. These three have been going at it for a number of months now, and you're sitting there and you're waiting to go out and talk to your supporters, and here you sit at 45 to 45 after all this campaigning.
Yeah.
And we figure it was going to be close.
Yeah, exactly. And so what you got to tell them is your supporters, it's going to be close. We won't know until tomorrow. We'll see you then. Right now it says there are 1.26 million ballots that are counted.
Oh boy.
The estimate is that there are probably 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 million out there.
So anything
So
can
there's
happen.
still a lot of ballots to be counted.
Jim, we've got about a minute or so left. I want to get from you the biggest surprise of the night that you've seen.
Biggest surprise of tonight is Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez being ahead by this much. Once again, there's still ballots to come in and those kinds of things, but that will be the national story. The other big surprise to me is, quite frankly, the anti-slavery measure passing, but passing by a relatively narrow margin. I'm not sure that's going to make Oregon look that good.
Right. Your final thoughts before we go?
A lot to watch. City Council, especially with the Multnomah County dump, looking at the reform measure as well. But that City Council race, a lot of eyes on that between Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hardesty.
You guys have been terrific to work with. I'll tell you that much right now. Always enjoy it. I really do. It's so fascinating to work with you guys and listen to all your knowledge. Thanks for watching, everybody. 11 o'clock tonight, of course, we have the news that will bring you all the very latest from these very, very close campaigns, and what a night it has been. We'll see what changes at 11 o'clock tonight. I'm Steve Dunn. Thanks for watching, and good night.
From K2 News, this is a special report. Your voice, your vote. The 2022 midterm election.
This is a Your Voice, Your Vote update in the 2022 midterm elections. I'm Steve Dunn. Here are the very latest results in the race for Oregon governor right now. We look at these, we can show you that it is very, very close. Look at that, 45% for Tina Kotek, 45% for Christine Drazen. Betsy Johnson at 9% now. K2's Genevieve Rayom is live in Northeast Portland at the Democratic Party headquarters with the very latest. Genevieve, take it away.
Well, Steve, I can tell you that I just learned that we will hear from Tina Kotek sometime between now and 10:30. So we will for sure hear from her before the 11 o'clock newscast. So potentially, excuse me, I think we're going to hear from her between 10 and 11. So we will hear from her before that 11 p.m. newscast. We know that she is somewhere nearby. She's waiting for more ballots to come in. As you mentioned, it is such a tight race between Tina Kotek and Christine Drazen. What I can tell you, what has been very interesting about tonight here at the Hyatt Regency is there hasn't been any publicly posting in the ballroom of how close the race is. So I know there's something outside, but as far as what's happening in the ballroom, we're just hearing from a lot of prominent Democrats. And right now, they're trying to get the crowd rallied up, trying to get people excited as we get another batch of ballots coming in. Steve, back to you.
All right, Genevieve Rayom, thank you for your update tonight. And K2's Eric Mock is live in Silverton now with Republican Christine Drazen's campaign. What's the latest from there, Eric?
Yeah, still haven't seen her come out here yet, and the crowd definitely has thinned out a little bit here at the Oregon Garden, but still a lot of excited people here. They're very, happy to see those close results like you just mentioned. 45% for Tina Kotek, 45% for Christine Drazen. People here really believe that she can make history, that she can be the first Republican governor in the last 40 years elected. Now, we've talked to Christine Drazen about the potential, though, of some gridlock in the legislature if she is elected. She knows that's a reality that could happen, so she says she's prepared for that. And we're told that she's going to come out here sometime before 11 p.m. to address her crowd, which is a good thing because I'm sure, some people, again, seems like maybe some of them are starting to sit down instead of keep standing here. So we'll continue to bring you live updates from here. For now, reporting live in Silverton, Eric Mock, K2 News.
All right, Eric, thank you for that as well. And look at some of the races here. A U.S. representative for Oregon District number 5. Lori Chavez-DeRemer and Jamie McLeod-Skinner. You see Chavez-DeRemer with 6-point lead at this point. Race for U.S. Rep for Oregon District number 6. Andrea Salinas, the Democrat, Mike Erickson, the Republican, and we see that one's gotten a little bit tighter, 2% for Andrea Salinas at this point. District number 4, Val Hoyle, the Democrat, Alex Garlados, and we see about 9-point lead for Val Hoyle. Look at this one. U.S. Rep for District number 3 in the state of Washington, 53% for Marie Glusenkamp-Perez and Joe Kent, 47%. The nation will be watching that one closely if that continues in that direction. Get more local election coverage right now by heading over to KATU.com. There you can get up-to-the-minute results on the local races important to you on our elections page, and a lot is happening tonight. Make sure you join us next for K2 News at 11 o'clock. Our team is working on a complete wrap-up of all the election night festivities. I'm Steve Dunn. We'll see you soon.